Hey everyone, per your requests, I'm starting Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San today. My channel isn't monetized, so if you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Thank you. Now, let's get back to the story of Soul Land 5, The Rebirth of Tang San.
A tiny spark of light was floating in the vast emptiness of space. The spark was unnoticeable, existing between reality and nothingness. Yet within this spark resided a consciousness, a divine consciousness. Only this divine consciousness could roam the universe without facing the threat of destruction. It was searching for something as it moved in a singular direction. Silently, he felt it all, a guiding and pulling force that appeared and disappeared. Since the passing of his wife, his divine consciousness had faded. The only means for him to return to the real world was to be reborn. In this world, there was no cure for the regret of things that might have been. Even though he was a god king and could reverse time for a short period, he could not change everything that had happened. He had no choice but to find her, even if it meant abandoning the tens of thousands of years of cultivation and relinquishing his god king rank. There was nothing more important than her. Without her, what was the point of being the king of the universe? Without her, it all would become meaningless. With a clear mind, he chose to die alongside her, preserving a fragment of his divine consciousness solely for his quest to find his wife. He firmly believed he would discover the world where his wife had reincarnated. Memories of their past together unfolded in his mind, from when they first met to the final seconds as she departed. Even after tens of thousands of years, all his memories with her remained as vivid as if they had happened yesterday. Please wait for me, Xiao Wu. Even if you and Appos V lost your memory of our time together after you reincarnated, I must and I will keep seeking you out. Your Tang San was reborn for you. Wah wah wah. Weak cries echoed in the narrow, drafty room. A woman was clutching her baby tightly in her embrace. Using a torn cotton blanket, she did her best to protect the baby from the cold wind seeping through the cracks of the door and the windows. The flickering oil lamp barely illuminated the gloomy room, as if it could be extinguished at any moment. Wah wah wah, cried Tang San, doing his best to speak. All he accomplished was to let out the most basic sound, a baby in Appos' wail. He has been in this world for a few days. Even though he had only been born 3 days earlier, he already felt an impending premonition of misfortune. As a former god king, he had given up everything he had on the quest to find his reincarnated wife. Just before his divine consciousness fizzled out, he sensed the slightest tug guiding him, and there he was entering into this world. No matter how strong he used to be, right now, his reincarnated form was a newborn baby. The memory of his past life held the greatest value for him. No matter how powerful he recalled being in his past life, it couldn't and Appos changed the reality of him being in the body of a weak and vulnerable baby. Having been born for just 3 days, he survived solely on the meager breast milk of his birth mother in this world. Even the languages of this new world eluded him, and he knew he would need more time to adapt. He could sense that his reincarnation into this new world would be fraught with more difficulties than he could comprehend. At the very least, in his past life, he was born into the family of a blacksmith. His father was a blacksmith who had secret powers. Tang San had also possessed the innate talent that made him one of the strongest in his world. By contrast, his biggest worry right now was to survive. Following his extensive journey through the universe, his divine consciousness struggled to maintain the sheer weight of his memories. There was little besides the fragments he clung to from his former life. From his present infant form, he sensed his weakness and vulnerability, feeling utterly feeble and pathetic. In this new world, his birth mother suffered from malnutrition, which unfortunately led to Tang San and Appos' reincarnation being undernourished as well. Even his cries came out weak. In his previous life, he was a father, and he could tell the difference between the cries of a healthy baby and an unhealthy one. The baby Tang San was running the risk of not being able to draw his next breath, much less let out the hearty cries of a healthy newborn. While he hadn't an Appos, T held high hopes of being reincarnated into a wealthy family, he also hadn't an Appos. T been prepared for the desperate situation he was born into. The great god king was reincarnated and yet so close to death. Is this the end? He wondered. Is this a story that will end even before the first chapter is finished? He had come to understand his surroundings in the 3 short days he had spent in this new world. His dread could be directly linked to his knowledge of his predicament. While Tang San was reincarnated as a human, just as he had in the world he had left behind, he realized that humans belonged to a different caste in the new world. Simply put, humans were enslaved in this land. Yes, indeed, the ugly truth was that humans were relegated as slaves to the higher beings of this world. This was why the humans here lived such a miserable existence. 3 days. It had been 3 days, and Tang San had not even met his father in this new world. All he knew was that his birth mother was his sole companion. The poor mother and son mainly relied on the food offerings from other human beings who visited. These kind souls who were the source of their sustenance were also dressed shabbily. Judging from the numb expressions of these passers-by, they seemed accustomed to being treated poorly, day in, day out. While Tang San retained his memories from his past life and possessed a stronger divine soul due to his divine consciousness, he still faced challenges in this new world. He had yet to learn the language of this world. The primary reason was that humans in this world did not communicate often, and when they did, they only spoke in monosyllabic words. Is my short existence finally coming to an end? Tang San thought, smiling wryly. Unable to control himself, he let out 2 soft sobs. Xiao Wu, if you can hear me in this world, please bless me, your husband. Please bless me with the ability to stay alive. If not, it will be impossible for us to reunite as a family. The weakness in his body caused him to drift off into a deep sleep. While in this muddled and confused state, a whole month passed by. While he stayed alive barely, with a meager portion of milk from his mother, he could tell that he wasn't Appos, doing well. He was aware of his own physical status, and he could sense his weak heart doing its best to keep him alive. It had been almost a month, yet he barely weighed 5 pounds. Compared to his past life, he was nowhere close to the growth a 1-month-old baby should have reached. Bang! The fragile door squeaked on its hinges as it opened with force. The door slamming was the loudest sound that Tang San had heard since the start of his time in this new world. Trying his best to open his eyes, he looked over towards the source of the commotion. The individual that had just entered the room was substantial in physique. Tang San stared, his thoughts drifting away. Well, whatever this creature was, it was not human. While Tang San had seen plenty of strange beasts in his past life, the one standing before him was unfamiliar. The creature was more than 2 meters tall, and had the body of a human male but with the head of a wolf. It had protruding fangs and emitted a strange odor. Its ripped physique had almost torn the doorframe upon entering the room. It and Appos, been a month. Handed over, the wolf demon snarled at Tang San and Appos' mother. Hearing this, she cradled Tang San tightly in her embrace, tears falling from her fearful eyes. A month? Tang San could finally grasp some simple words of the language spoken in this world. Emotions he couldn't and Appos yet comprehend washed over him. This wolf demon seemed to want to take him away, but why? As fresh meat for consumption? Now! Give it over! The wolf demon snarled impatiently. Tang San and Appos' mother shook with unconcealed fear, tears overflowing. The wolf demon could not care less, stepping forward and snatching Tang San single-handedly. Child! My child! While the woman wailed and cried uncontrollably, she made no attempts at retrieving her child. She took the only blanket in the room and tried to cover Tang San with it. Tang San felt a painful squeeze in his heart. This was the first time he had felt heartache in this new world. Suddenly, Tang San and Appos' mother realized her baby had turned to face her, not crying despite the circumstances. His eyes glimmered with a newfound light, captivating her enough to pause her actions. Get lost! Snarled the wolf demon, pushing her roughly. As she tumbled onto the hay-covered ground, Tang San was yanked out of the small hay hut, clasped firmly in the creature and Appos' mighty paw. Out in the open, Tang San was assailed by the biting winds. The wolf demon, perhaps aiming to keep his prey from succumbing to the cold, draped the shabby blanket over Tang San. At that moment, darkness enveloped everything, momentarily shielding Tang San from the biting cold wind. Despite the struggle to breathe, Tang San endured for the time being. He fought to steady himself, silently imploring Dawn and Appos Leave this world, mother. Please stay alive. As long as I survive, I and Appos, I'll find you and make sure you live well. Wait for my return. After composing himself, Tang San decided the wolf demon hadn't and Appos abducted him for a meal. His reasoning was simple. Firstly, compared to the meager bits of flesh on his body, his mother held far greater value as a meal. Secondly, the wolf demon and Appos covering him with a blanket indicated a concern for preventing him from freezing to death. If he were merely food, his survival wouldn't Appos matter. However, the grim possibility of them preferring to devour him alive still lingered, impossible to dismiss entirely. However calm he was, what could a 1-month-old baby possibly do but adapt to the circumstances? He could only take each day as it came. Faintly, the wind whistle was the only audible sound from the outside world. This place was known as the Demon Continent, something Tang San had discovered after barely grasping some of the language. As he had expected, humans in this realm were regarded as not only slaves but also the lowliest of slaves. Their fragile bodies rendered them useless. Of course, there was also the possibility of them becoming their master and Appos' dinner. It was only expected to treat the lowliest slaves as food. As for any other details, Tang San remained ignorant. Communication between his mother and the other humans was infrequent. A month had slipped by without a glimpse of his father, signaling a dreadful conclusion. How dreadful! Unbearably dreadful! Even if I start from scratch, give me a chance to begin again, Tang San mourned silently. He had previously contemplated the challenges of rebirth, but the reality surpassed his expectations in its sheer difficulty. At last, the wolf demon appeared to stop, and Tang San faintly heard him say a few words. He couldn't and Appos decipher the world and Appos' language because he was hindered by both the blanket and his scant comprehension of the world and Appos' language. Soon after, he sensed himself being passed to another being. As the blanket was lifted, Tang San instinctively curled his body defensively. Contrary to the anticipated chill of the wind, he was met with warmth. However, along came an unpleasant odor that accompanied the newfound warmth. That said, this was the first moment since his birth that he experienced warmth surrounding him from every direction. With his eyes open, he meticulously observed his surroundings. Another child that looks like one of those baby monkeys, a muffled voice whimpered. Just then, Tang San came face to face with the creature holding him. Is that it? Pig head. Upon further contemplation, he decided this was, indeed, a being with the head of a pig. The pig creature looked closer at Tang San and then carried him inside. A crying cacophony began, and Tang San realized he was not the only baby in this place. He was placed in a soft, cushiony haystack. Well, it could be called a haystack, or it could be called a nest. All around him, the sounds of crying got louder. A shadow cast over him, and his mouth was forced open. Once his lips were apart, a large, soft object that smelled sweet and raw was stuffed into his mouth. Tang San and Appos' eyes opened widely when warm milk gushed directly into his throat. Nope, it wasn't Appos' because he was moved by being appropriately fed. His surprise came at almost choking to death. If his birth mother and Appos' milk were to be described as a trickling stream, this feeding would be likened to the impossibly wide Yangtze River. To save himself from drowning in the incoming milk flood, Tang San subconsciously tried to tighten his toothless gums to regulate the flow of the milk. Once he did this, he could swallow the milk, albeit with difficulty. Breathing hard with his nose, he did his best to get his weak, small body to adjust to the feeding. Finally, he could breathe normally again. He didn't and Appos' care about anything else and did his best to drink the milk. Nutrients. Much needed nutrients. Was this a ray of hope shining upon him? He didn't and Appos' care if it was human milk or pig milk. As long as it kept him fed, he was satisfied. His satisfaction didn't and Appos' last as the dark shadow moved away from him. Even though he was fed to a point where he felt bloated, he wanted to have more. After all, this was the first time he had felt like he had a good meal since he had arrived in this world. As his hunger was sated, his energy levels improved, and Tang San started observing the world around him. The structure he was in looked like a house with hay on the floor. Tang San was weakly moving his head around since he was not yet strong enough to turn himself over on his stomach. He could only peek at the things around him. Right next to him were 3 or 4 children who looked about the same age as him. All of them looked just like him, skinny and weak. Everyone lay on a kind of soft hay. The room was warm, a respite from the usual cold weather. The pig nurse who had just fed him also fed the others simultaneously. Tang San thought, is this what it and Appos like to be raised like cattle? Are we slaves being raised uniformly? Tang San did his best to comfort himself. At least he wooed and Appos to be eaten, that was good enough. After being fed earlier, he felt like the odds of his survival had increased. The pig nurse came by thrice every day to feed them. Initially, Tang San was not used to the abundant milk he was fed. However, he quickly got accustomed to the feedings and did his best to drink more to get the nutrients for his growing body. With a healthier physique, he could grow and eventually have the chance to cultivate. Through cultivation, he could gain strength and seize control of his own fate. No matter what kind of world he had ended up in, staying alive and surviving was paramount. As the days flew by, Tang San hit his 100th day. His chubby cheeks and fair complexion stood out among the other kids. It seemed several pig nurses were around and there were many kids. After 100 days of eating well and growing, he was already able to turn over by himself. And so, he was able to see more things. Listening to the pig nurses chatting, he began to grasp their language and learn more about the world around him. The fairy continent was vast in land mass, so large that the pig nurses could not describe it. Tang San was reborn in a small town in the northeast belonging to an upper-class member of the Wolf Demon clan. The land known as the Demon Continent gained its name from its predominant residents, comprising 2 distinct races, the demons and nymphs. Collectively, they were often referred to as demons. Wind Wolf Town was where they resided. The pig nurses and Appos. Conversations hinted that the dominant forces in this world appeared to be the demons and nymphs, powerful and influential races. In this world, humans were considered the lowest class of slaves. These children, including Tang San, were raised together and received slave education before eventually becoming property owned by upper-class wolves. In essence, Tang San was now the possession of the Wind Wolf Lord in Wind Wolf Town, and was among the least valuable of slaves. In this world, a considerable number of humans existed, and their sole advantage lay in their ability to reproduce. The reproductive capabilities of the demons and nymphs were relatively limited, creating the foundation for human survival. The humans in this world were too weak. In the eyes of the demons and the nymphs, humans were unfit to be put to work on any physically laborious tasks. Compared to other species of slaves, humans were considered more intelligent and could work on more refined tasks. Furthermore, demons and nymphs believed humans had more delicate flesh and would be tastier. It felt like things couldn't and Appos possibly worsen. Tang San found solace only in silence. With circumstances already at their lowest, he would indeed feel happier if anything changed for the better in the future. Now, his only concern lay with his wife and her potential reincarnation. Would her circumstances be as dire as his own? It must be noted that the pig nurse and Appos' milk was far more nourishing than Tang San and Appos' biological mother and Appos' at least, he could satiate his hunger with it. At 6 months, Tang San felt he had finally reached the state of a typical human child from his former world. His relatively plump stature, in contrast to the frailty of other children, was evident. At 6 months he could even be considered a bit chubby. His plumpness garnered him more favor from the pig nurses. In this world it seemed that strength was beauty. But upon reaching 6 months the milk supply ceased. Instead, they were given a porridge-like substance poured into small pots. They had to rely on their hands to eat, and their intake depended on their skill in grabbing and snatching. Many of the children struggled to sit up properly, often requiring the patient assistance of the pig nurses who fed them with spoons. Tang San earned even greater favor from the pig nurses throughout this period. He had become adept at grabbing and eating from the pot all by himself. Consequently, he naturally consumed more, sometimes earning a reward of an occasional drink of milk. He wasn't an Appos sure what he was eating, but as long as it filled his stomach it was satisfactory. Once done eating, Tang San reclined on the hay bed, and an unexpected urge to laugh bubbled up within him. It reminded him of a phrase a friend used to say in his past: "There and Appos, a golden phoenix even in a grass nest." He could consider himself as growing up in a grass nest now. He pondered how his friends would react if they knew about it. Contemplating these thoughts, Tang San shut his eyes, drawing hay over himself for warmth. Concentrating, he focused his mind prowess on guiding blood circulation. He and Appos been reborn before in the Douluo continent. This time around, the circumstances were far harsher. However, there was a chance to survive now. He was determined to push for strength to secure his survival. The mysterious heaven technique, his foundational practice from his past life, seemed the most fitting option. It prioritized balance and harmony, making it the perfect starting point. In his prior rebirth, he had already mastered the first stage of the mysterious heaven technique by the age of 6. This early mastery laid the groundwork for his subsequent accomplishments as a god king. He possessed a deeper comprehension of the mysterious heaven technique in this life than his previous rebirth. However, a significant hurdle lay in his current weak physique, hindering its complete practice. Trapped within a mere 6-month-old body, he couldn't and Appos expect remarkable progress. His meridians hadn't and Appos fully developed, rendering him unable to fully activate the mysterious heaven technique despite practicing it. His only recourse was to utilize the technique and his spiritual power to quietly attune to the spiritual energy in the atmosphere, absorbing a modest amount to nourish his body. He had begun his initial attempts a few days prior when he was in a relatively decent state. While not precisely strong, he wasn't Appos as feeble as those teetering on the brink of death. Much to his surprise, when Tang San initially endeavored to perceive the world using his divine consciousness, he found an incredibly abundant spiritual energy. Even within this seemingly ordinary territory of the demon's Wind Wolf town, the spiritual energy surpassed that of the Douluo continent from his previous life. He couldn't and Appos even be sure if the later evolved Douluo planet boasted such richness in spiritual energy. Initially worried and hesitant to explore, Tang San had feared he might encounter a world devoid of spiritual or elemental energy. However, the abundance of spiritual energy eased his concerns. It and Appos often said that even the cleverest housewife can and Appos cook without rice. Humans were slaves, their future uncertain and precarious. If their cultivation also progressed at a pathetically slow pace, Wooden and Appos they be in danger of being crushed at any moment by the might of demons and nymphs? It served as the first piece of good news he had received. With such plentiful spiritual energy, cultivating would likely be more manageable once he began practicing. Each day, he silently absorbed a small measure of spiritual energy, working to internally enhance his body, even though these changes weren't and Appos evident on the surface. He seemed slightly more energetic than the average child while remaining apparently feeble. As the days went by, the children gradually began to speak. However, by that point about a quarter of them had passed away silently. There were no medical treatments available in this place, just food. No one guided or taught them anything. They had to navigate and learn independently. At only a year old, still finding their footing, they were shifted to another spot under the watchful eye of a strict pig demon. It was a wooden house with floors covered in hay, providing little warmth. 200 kids were packed into a 200 square meter area. Yet there was only enough food for 150. From the discussions among the pig and wolf demons, Tang San understood that the stronger children, who could compete for food, would develop stronger bodies and endure as slaves for extended periods. Those with weaker constitutions were deemed a waste of food. From the sorrow he felt for the plight of humans in this world, a seed of rebellion took root in his heart. Yet, at just 1 year old, he could do nothing about it. As Tang San fortified himself by taking in more spiritual energy, his body grew significantly more substantial than others his age. Yet, he only consumed what he needed, leaving the surplus for others. He could only bear witness as the weakest children were taken away. He was helpless to intervene. As the world grew quiet each night, he and Appos quietly absorbed spiritual energy, pondering deeply in the stillness. A year had passed since he had arrived in this world, and witnessing humans living in conditions worse than pigs and dogs left him deeply troubled and anxious. A thought tormented him. His wife, reborn alongside him but with no recollection of her past life, might be enduring similar or even worse circumstances. Whenever he dwelled on this, a fierce anger surged within him. Why are humans in this world so weak? Xiaowu, where are you? He longed to grow up swiftly and become stronger to search for his Xiaowu. She must still be alive. She must be living well. In the blink of an eye, 3 years slipped by, and during that time they scarcely glimpsed the outside world. Their only view was through the occasional cracks in the wooden hut. The sky was beginning to brighten. Among the few children left, most struggled to speak and stumbled over their words daily. There was no education, nothing at all. They were simply kept alive like livestock. The door was thrust open immediately, and a colossal wolf demon entered. "Come out! Get them all out," commanded the wolf demon to the pig demon, who usually kicked the children around with impunity. The pig demon let out an immediate scream. Upon hearing the scream, the children trembled uncontrollably. As they shuffled through the door, nearly all the children huddled and curled up together. For them, the outside world seemed even more terrifying. Outside stood several large carts pulled by humans. Inside these carts were cages. The human slaves dragging the carts had vacant eyes, paying no heed to the presence of the children. It appeared they had long grown accustomed to this scene. After throwing the children into the cages, the wolf demon herded the human-powered carts forward. Evidently, they were relocating again, moving to another place for survival. The path was evenly laid with pebbles that creaked under the rolling wheels. For Tang San, this was the first glimpse of the outside world since arriving in this realm 3 years ago. The sky stayed clear, and the air carried a slight chill. Today in Ep's weather seemed more favorable, not as bitterly cold. While most of the children shivered, Tang San appeared unaffected by the temperature. Along both sides of the road lay remarkable forests. What made them astonishing was the towering vegetation that stretched as far as the eye could see. Compared to the plants from his previous life's memories, these shared similarities but were significantly larger. Some of the robust trees reached almost 100 meters in height, forcing him to crane his neck upward to behold them fully. Now and then, a colossal creature soared through the air, resembling a bird, yet its form remained somewhat indiscernible. The atmosphere teemed with spiritual energy and vitality. In 3 years, Tang San had become certain that this world was incredibly conducive to cultivation, a realm pulsating with high life energy. No doubt, the formidable demons and nymphs flourished and evolved thanks to this environment. Within 3 years, Tang San had effectively cultivated the first order of the mysterious heaven technique. In his previous world, the Douluo continent, advancing beyond the first order of the mysterious heaven technique, demanded unique methods. Yet here it seemed unnecessary. As he guided the energy through his meridians, the internal energy of the mysterious heaven technique naturally breached the first order's barrier. What amazed him more was that he was merely 3 years old. Back in his previous world, he had achieved this breakthrough at the age of 6. Though the revelations differed, they were still intricately linked to the spiritual energy of this world. Despite his progress, Tang San was still weak and needed to be wary of attracting attention from the powerful demons. He sensed that even the most ordinary wolf demon possessed cultivation akin to at least the second order of the mysterious heaven technique, if not higher. Considering the gap in physical prowess, any attempt at resistance seemed like a sure path to self-destruction. In this world, humans remained unaware and ignorant. Tang San believed that if he genuinely aimed to change this state of human slavery, eradicating this ignorance was perhaps the most critical aspect to address. After what seemed like over an hour of traveling, at least in Tang San and Ep's perception of time, they reached a place that resembled a village. Simple wooden huts were scattered around, housing ragged humans, primarily men with few women in sight. The village appeared to harbor thousands of residents. The cart came to a halt, and the doors swung open. A few human women approached, bowing deeply to the wolf demon. "These little brats are now your responsibility. Take them away," the chief wolf demon coldly commanded. Tang San was taken aback. Were they being sent back to live with the humans? These children were held captive for 3 years and lacked any understanding of what was going on around them. Confronted with this unfamiliar world, they only harbored fear. They were forcibly brought into the village. Tang San and Ep's heart sank when he realized that even the human slaves in this village showed little compassion toward these children. Their gazes were vacant, and they mechanically ushered the children into the village. In the ensuing days, they were introduced to education. Yes, these children were granted the opportunity to learn. What did they learn? Initially, they were taught to recognize objects, familiarize themselves with the tools used by the slaves, and acquire basic language skills. The food they received was even poorer compared to what they had in captivity. It was apparent that food was in short supply in this place. Women and children received a meager portion, and only the stronger men could get a bit more to eat. Within the village, their freedom of movement was unrestricted. Tang San noticed that men often went out for work, or rather for slaving away. Death was an everyday reality in the village. He discovered he came from a different village through conversations among the villagers. In these human settlements, children born within a village wherein and Appos, allowed to be raised there, they were exchanged and adopted elsewhere. Tang San refrained from acting impulsively or saying anything remarkable. He silently lived in the village, dedicating himself to cultivation. Another 3 years slipped by, and he reached the age of 6. Children were typically expected to assist in the village at 6 years old by weaving mats or carrying lighter objects. These children had been living together since their arrival, and even at the age of 6, the situation remained unchanged. 1/3 of the children had passed away in the last 3 years. There were many causes for that. Mostly, however, they died of hunger or because they lacked medical care. A figure slipped away soundlessly as night descended upon the unassuming human village. Like many human children, Tang San had a slightly stooped posture, yet his movements were swift. As he ventured into the forest, his back suddenly straightened, and his usually dim eyes instantly brightened. He took a deep breath. The nights in Wind Wolf Town were bitterly cold, marked by a stark temperature drop from day to night. Nevertheless, the crisp air was infused with abundant spiritual energy, revitalizing his being. Tang San and Appos' hands formed a hugging gesture before him, and a faint white light began circulating around his body. With a light tap of his toes on the ground, he started moving, this time in a more agile manner. Drawing from his experiences in his past life, he was naturally adept at the mysterious heaven technique. However, this new body required training and practice to synchronize with his thoughts. Since the age of 5, he often sneaked out at night. The wilderness offered denser spiritual energy, allowing him to practice more effectively. His agile steps mirrored the ghost shadow perplexing track, one of his most potent abilities from his previous life. It was the first skill he prioritized practicing in this dangerous world, recognizing that nothing was more important than safeguarding his life. A faint jade hue slowly surfaced on his hands, signifying another supreme skill, the mysterious jade hands. This technique rendered his palms impervious to all poisons and immune to blades and spears. After an hour of cultivation, his body emitted a faint heat, and the energy of the mysterious heaven technique circulated smoothly within him. However, he felt somewhat helpless as the martial soul he had awakened on the Douluo continent in his previous life appeared to be absent in this world. Of course, this was to be expected. He was reborn, carrying only his memories and not his prior abilities. He had finally reached the 3rd order of the mysterious heaven technique. At the age of 6, he had cultivated up to the 3rd order. He hadn't even dared to dream of this in his previous life. Unfortunately, his current strength was far from what he had attained at the same order in his previous life. On the Douluo continent, he had awakened a martial soul that granted him tremendous power. Additionally, he had possessed the exceedingly rare twin martial souls. While the mysterious heaven technique provided internal power, the martial soul was the wellspring of his explosive strength. He distinctly recalled that upon breaking through to the 3rd order in the Douluo continent, he had merged with a powerful soul ring and acquired a formidable soul bone, laying the groundwork for his future accomplishments. He could only rely on the mysterious heaven technique, and the techniques documented in the mysterious heaven treasure record he carried from his previous world. While solely dedicating himself to cultivating the mysterious heaven technique would lead to continuous strength gains, he still felt it wasn't enough. As Tang San stretched his body, thoughts spun through his mind. After an exhausting work day, the villagers would go to bed early and sleep deeply. At the moment, it was still quite some time before dawn. Tang San resolved to venture deeper into the forest. The spiritual energy there seemed noticeably denser compared to the village. He pondered whether the forest and Apo's depths concealed precious treasures or valuable resources. Upon realizing that martial soul awakening was impossible in this world, and he could only cultivate the mysterious heaven technique, Tang San and Apo's plan became straightforward. He resolved to diligently cultivate the mysterious heaven technique to higher orders, amass strength, and then explore how to wield this power effectively. With the profound techniques inscribed in the Tang sect and Apo's mysterious heaven record, self-defense Wuden and Apo's pose a challenge once he reached an adequate order. Through his cultivation, Tang San gradually understood why humans were inherently weak and relegated to slavery. This world was known as the Phelan Planet, and it comprised a single vast continent, the Demon Continent, where he presently dwelled. The demons and nymphs possess formidable innate abilities. In this land teeming with spiritual energy, they simply needed to continuously absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth after birth to augment their inherent abilities, rendering them immensely powerful. No other race could rival their might. Conversely, humans lacked inherent combat abilities and cultivation techniques. Unless they were resourceful, they were essentially powerless and fated to serve as slaves under the mighty demons and nymphs. The light in the forest was dim due to the thick vegetation. A celestial body akin to the moon existed in this world, emitting an unusual faint blue glow. It was a rather peculiar sight. Tang San and Apo's eyes flickered with a faint purple light, an effect of cultivating another supreme technique from the mysterious heaven scroll called the Purple Demon Eyes. Mastering this technique required him to practice facing the rising sun every day. He had to flatten himself against the gap between the floor and door for the last 2 years, barely managing to practice. In the past 2 years, he had discovered more opportunities for cultivation. The aid of the purple demon eyes enabled him to perceive the things around him in the forest distinctly. The further he delved, the more acutely he sensed the strangeness within. In his former world, there existed beings known as spirit beasts. Initially oppressed by humans, they persistently fought until they achieved a peaceful coexistence. However, demons and nymphs reigned supreme on this demon continent, while humans struggled to survive. It appeared that everything was reversed. As Tang San proceeded, he suddenly heard some movement and instinctively sought cover behind a large tree, holding his breath. Thump! Not far ahead, a figure tumbled to the ground and rolled twice before stopping. The individual in Apo's breathing was rapid and erratic, and they gasped for air in large gulps. They struggled to rise but seemed to lack the strength, and they fell back down again. Tang San remained motionless, using his purple demon eye to observe the situation cautiously. To his surprise, the fallen individual turned out to be a human male. A mask concealed his face, and their appearance remained hidden, but the figure undoubtedly belonged to a human. From the earlier leap, it was apparent that he was no ordinary individual. A human with special abilities? Tang San and Apo's eyes sparked with curiosity. His understanding of this world remained limited because he was confined to the small town of Wind Wolf. The sudden encounter with such a capable human was undoubtedly a pleasant surprise. However, the person emitted a strong scent of blood, and it was clear that they were injured. At that moment, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the forest. Someone was approaching them at an astonishing speed. Tang San, who had been readying to venture out, swiftly concealed himself again. "This way!" echoed a resounding howl, trailed by a robust figure leaping from the air. His eyes gleamed with a green light in the darkness, a wolf demon. He dashed wildly on all fours, incredibly swift. When he reared up, his figure surpassed 2 meters in height, and his robust muscles pulsated with explosive power. A third-order wolf demon. Throughout these years, Tang San had garnered insight into the hierarchical structure prevailing on the demon continent. Regardless of race, status and power were appraised according to a ranked scale. The lowest order was the first, and ordinary humans were fundamentally unable to reach even the first order, which relegated them to slaves. Wolf demons like the one here were born in the first order, and upon maturation, they would at least attain the second order. The formidable ones would ascend to the third order. This was specific to the most prevalent bloodline of wolf demons. Higher-order bloodlines were rumored to be even more potent. Regarding the highest order within the demon continent, Tang San remained unaware. Wind Wolf Town, though being at a remote location, had a fifth-order leader. Tang San estimated that the energy output from the mysterious heaven technique at a specific order was likely on par with that of a demon or nymph in a similar order. So, as he was at the third order of the mysterious heaven technique, Tang San and Appo's cultivation level was nearly comparable to that of a third-order wolf demon. The third-order wolf demon appeared out of nowhere and leaped straight at the human. Noticing the threat, the human swiftly rolled sideways and dodged the wolf demon and Appo's lunge. At that moment he made a strange movement. His body seemed to stretch suddenly, and his hands sprouted sharp claws. A faint yellow glow surrounded him, making his figure stand out in the dark. Tang San noticed a coat of brown-yellow fur with black-brown markings emerging from his skin. As this change occurred, the human's speed surged. His claws were aimed directly at the wolf demon and Appo's chest and abdomen. The wolf demon swiftly redirected its front paws to block the human and Appo's claws, producing a sharp clang as they clashed. The human and Appo's strength was notably lacking, and he was instantly pushed back. He was clearly stunned for a moment, and blood started dripping down from his lower abdomen. Suddenly, several rays of green light appeared from the distance, aimed directly at the human. The third-order wolf demon unleashed a furious roar and shot a wind blade toward the human. The transformed human appeared to unleash his full potential at this crucial moment. He leaped with astonishing speed, almost like lightning, darting through the gaps between the wind blades. As the faint yellow radiance on his body intensified, his speed increased sharply, and he instantly appeared in front of the third-order wolf demon. His claws swiped out, catching the wolf demon off guard. Although the wolf demon hastily tried to block with his claws, his movements were just a fraction too slow. In life-threatening moments, creatures of any kind often unleash immense power, and this transformed human was no exception. His claws reached the wolf demon and Appo's throat before he could react, slashing across it. But in an instant the wolf demon and Appo's claws struck the transformed human and Appo's shoulder, sending him flying. The third-order wolf demon emitted strange hissing sounds, clutching his throat with his claws. But despite his efforts, a critical blood vessel had been severed, causing a gush of fresh blood. His green eyes rolled back, and it seemed that he had taken a fatal blow. In an instant, another formidable wolf demon leaped forward. He was the companion who had unleashed the wind blades from a distance. Fuck! Leopard flash. The first wolf demon sprawled on the ground. No matter how hard he tried to stop the bleeding in his throat, his efforts proved futile. The final strike of the transformed human had severed his throat, sealing his fate. Die! With an equally muscular physique, the second third-order wolf demon lunged fiercely at the human. Its claws emitted a sinister glow alongside a subtle fluctuation of the wind element, a fusion of wind blade and an explosive assault. In that critical moment, from the shadows, an unassuming figure stealthily darted out from the side. The third-order wolf demon, entirely focused on the transformed human, remained unaware of the new arrival. With astonishing speed, the tiny figure darted from a blind spot, their palm as white as jade aimed directly at the soaring wolf demon and Appo's eyes. Tang San and Appo's mastery of time, position, and distance was remarkable. Tang San was acutely aware of the vast difference in natural talent and physical strength between himself and the wolf demon, even though he possessed the profound skills of the Tang sect and was at the third order of the mysterious heaven technique. A direct confrontation might not favor him, especially considering his youth and limited reserves of vital energy. Were it not for the transformed human and Appo's intervention that eliminated one wolf demon, Tang San wouldn't and Appo's have dared to act against two third-order adversaries. His survival took precedence above all else. Once committed to action, he understood the importance of a decisive blow. Distracted by rage, the wolf demon only became aware when Tang San's palm reached his eyes. He abruptly jerked his head, and his wolf maw lunged toward Tang San. At that crucial moment, Tang San grabbed the wolf with the other hand, capitalizing on his diminutive stature to alter his trajectory by tugging on the wolf and Appo's fur. Nearly somersaulting, he swiftly maneuvered around the chest of the third-rank wolf demon, seamlessly appearing on the opposite side of the wolf. With his index and middle fingers arranged in a sword-like gesture, the formidable power of the mysterious jade hand surged through him. The two fingers gleamed with a pristine white jade hue, thrusting like lightning bolts toward the wolf demon and Appo's eyes as it pivoted back. Spurt! The slender fingers penetrated the warm flesh instantly. Tang San knew he was vastly inferior in raw physical strength to this third-order wolf demon. However, it ended once he struck an opponent of similar cultivation in a vital spot. The mysterious heaven technique in Appo's power, channeled through the mysterious jade hand, surged forcefully into the wolf demon and Appo's brain. The creature and Appo's remaining eye burst open instantly, and his brain became a pulpy mess. The roaring ceased abruptly, and the once strong body of the beast collapsed to the ground. Tang San and Appo's muscles tensed as he executed a deft maneuver, his foot finding leverage against the creature and Appo's body. In a fluid motion, he propelled himself away, his body arching gracefully through the air before landing nimbly in a more distant spot. This strike in Appo's remarkable outcome owed itself to his extensive combat experience from his previous life. His current form, small and slender, blended perfectly with the darkness, serving as an ideal camouflage. Additionally, the third-order wolf demon was consumed by extreme rage and found his perception significantly dulled. In a head-on confrontation, Tang San and Appo's mysterious jade hand might not even be able to break through the wolf demon and Appo's thick skin. However, the eyes were the most fragile area. The wolf demon could not have survived being pierced through the eyes and injected with the energy of the mysterious heaven technique. Tang San and Appo's feet touched down firmly on the ground, and he noticed that the third-order wolf demon had ceased to move. It was only then that he allowed himself a sigh of relief. Rather than rushing to check on the human, he quickly dropped to the ground, pressing an ear against the earth. He lay still, listening intently for any signs of nearby pursuers. Given his current strength, Tang San knew a head-on battle with a third-order wolf demon would be a formidable challenge. His skills were sharp, but his young body lacked the necessary resilience. A single blow from the wolf demon could prove fatal. In executing that seemingly simple attack moments ago, he had exerted himself to the fullest, elevating his spiritual will to its utmost limit. No other movement stirred in the surroundings, indicating that the chase for the transforming human had involved only the two third-rank wolf demons. This realization allowed Tang San to breathe another sigh of relief. He would have had no choice but to flee if there had been more. He approached the human cautiously, every step measured and deliberate. As he drew closer to the person, he froze when he noticed that the once thick fur had vanished without a trace. The sight caused his heartbeat to rise. Given his childhood experiences and the unfamiliarity of the transformed human before him, the safest option was to stay still and wait until the wolf demons had departed. Yet he had chosen to intervene. Part of his decision was driven by the fact that the hunted individual was human. The other important reason was the transformation that had occurred earlier. In the Douluo continent, where Tang San originated, soul masters wielded unique powers by absorbing beast martial souls. These individuals could enhance their strength by cultivating these martial souls, an integral aspect of their mystical abilities. If this world had abilities akin to those in the Douluo continent, it would significantly boost his strength and facilitate his integration into this new environment. Tang San bent down, intending to turn the person over. Just then, the figure on the ground unexpectedly rolled over, and a claw swung at him. In that instant, as they both maneuvered in close quarters, the dim light briefly illuminated their faces, allowing them a fleeting glance at one another. The other person and Appo's claw halted mid-swing, not following through with the attack. In response, Tang San instantly sprang up, swiftly moving out of the person and Appo's reach. "You and Appo's re a human?" The young man's voice came out hoarse. He seemed to be in his 20s, his features pale yet strikingly handsome. Blood trickled from his mouth and nose, hinting at his weakened state. As he spoke, his hand fell limply to his side. Tang San could now clearly see a large gruesome wound across the person and Appo's chest and abdomen. Intestines spilled out from the gash, with a significant amount of blood. Tang San nodded in acknowledgement and quickly closed the distance between them. The young man lay on the ground, seemingly drained of all strength, his face ashen. He gasped for air, and his pupils were beginning to dilate, a sign of his dire condition. Without hesitation, Tang San sprang into action. He recognized that the person and Appo's immediate crisis was the excessive blood loss and the severe damage to his internal organs. Given the limitations of his current abilities, saving him was beyond his reach. The best he could do was to prolong the person and Appo's life temporarily. Tang San acted swiftly, first tying together the broken intestines that were spilling out and carefully placing them back into the abdomen. Next, he tore a piece of cloth from the person and Appo's clothing and pressed it firmly against the wound to stem the bleeding. Lastly, he placed his other hand on the person and Appo's chest, channeling the power of his mysterious heaven technique. Tang San wanted to protect and stabilize the man and Appo's vital energy, providing a crucial lifeline in this dire situation. As Tang San and Appo's efforts took effect, the person and Appo's difficult breathing began to ease, and a flicker of light returned to his eyes. In a tone tinged with disbelief, he murmured, You and Appo's were just a child. You, Tang San uttered solemnly. Your injuries are beyond healing. Tell me your last wishes and I'll do my best. Before that, though, I need you to answer a question. The young man was briefly taken aback by the calmness in Tang San's voice, which radiated a wisdom far beyond his years. However, he quickly nodded, unwavering in his determination. Very well, he said. Ask away. If I can help you, I'll also ask for your help in return. Without a doubt, the encounter marked a significant departure from Tang San and Appo's previous experiences in this unfamiliar world. This individual displayed exceptional rationality and clarity of thought. He had not been born into the life of servitude that many others suffered. Tang San wasted no time asking his most pressing question. How did you gain the ability to transform just now, and how can I acquire it as well? The young man paused momentarily, surprised by the inquiry. You Don and Appo's know about the demonic god transformation? And yet, you managed to kill that wolf demon? Demonic god transformation? I don't know what that is. I did this using my innate abilities, Tang San replied. Nevertheless, he held those 3 words, demonic god transformation, firmly in his thoughts, determined to unravel their meaning. The young man and Appo's eyes instantly lit up with curiosity. Did you spontaneously awaken the demonic god transformation? Tell me what in Appo's your unique ability? Tang San furrowed his brow and replied, Right now, I'm asking questions here. After a few deep breaths, the young man explained, the demonic god transformation is a formidable power that appears when humans, and either demons or nymphs, become connected by blood, and it's passed down that bloodline. Tang San and Appo's heart sank as he sought clarification. Are you suggesting it involves mixed bloodlines? The young man wore a bitter smile as he continued, Indeed, this is the only way we can get some power. And usually, those with mixed bloodlines don't acknowledge their human side. Most who possess the demonic god transformation choose to become subordinates of the demons and nymphs. After all, becoming the serfs of demons grants them a status far higher than that of ordinary humans. But some of us don't identify as demons or nymphs. We only seek to give humans the ability to stand independently, free from enslavement. So we rebelled. My mission was to assassinate the Wind Wolf Lord. But I made an error in judgment and was severely injured. That and Appo's how I ended up. Tang San delved deeper, asking, Does this mean that your demonic god transformation was also inherited through a mixed blood lineage? The young man clenched his teeth as he revealed, Yes, my mother was violated by a leopard demon, and I was the result of that union. Tang San continued to press on, his curiosity burning brightly. So, is it accurate to say that the sole route to obtaining the demonic god transformation is through this mixed blood lineage? Deprivation is another method. It and Appo's where you give up your own demonic god transformation power to make an inheritance and immediately pass it on to someone else. If they and Appo's recompatible, they might get the power. If not, it could kill them, the young man replied. Tang San and Appo's eyes shone with curiosity. How frequently can someone receive such an inheritance, and what conditions determine compatibility? Usually, individuals without any demonic god transformation power are the most likely to be compatible, although it also depends on whether their physical constitution can handle it. As for those already possessing demonic god transformation power, compatibility relies on whether the two types of power coexist and progress harmoniously, the young man explained. Tang San thought about it and asked, can someone take the demonic god transformation power directly from demons and nymphs? Can they use their bloodline power to strengthen their demonic god transformation? The young man hesitated before replying, my don and Appos, Tino, is it actually possible? But Wooden and Appos, the bloodline become chaotic if one devoured the power of demons or nymph bloodlines. Wooden and Appos, that lead to death? It's most likely not possible. Perhaps it and Appos. Worth trying. Even with the potential dangers involved, Tang San mused. As Tang San continued his conversation with the young man, he delved deeper into the mysteries of the power system in this enchanting world, especially how humans harnessed it. The demonic god transformation was about tapping into the incredible bloodline powers of demons and nymphs. Yet, because of the inherent frailty of human bloodlines, those with mixed blood could never hope to attain the same towering might as their pure-blooded counterparts. Nevertheless, those gifted with the demonic god transformation still wielded formidable strength beyond the reach of ordinary humans. It dawned on Tang San that mastering the art of demonic god transformation was vital if he desired swift growth in his abilities. Do you have any last wishes? Tang San asked the young man. I am Zhu Jiesan. The young man revealed his identity with a bitter smile. My mother suffered and died at the hands of that leopard demon. In this world I have no remaining kin. Even though you're a child, you possess the strength to contend with a third-order wolf demon. I believe your demonic god transformation must be powerful. If you want to assist our human race, consider joining our organization. I and Appos am on the verge of dying, and since you have an interest in the demonic god transformation, I can transfer my power to you. Whether you absorb it or not is entirely your decision, but if you sense incompatibility, please don't force it, Zhu Jiesan explained. Your organization? What in Appos is it called? And where is it located? Tang San asked with curiosity. Our organization has a presence in all major cities inhabited by demons and nymphs. I can and Appos provide you with specific people to contact, but when you grow older and decide to seek us out, you and Appos will surely be able to find us. Our organization is called Redemption Society. We exist to save humanity, Zhu Jiesan explained. As Zhu Jiesan spoke, a flush of red colored his cheeks. He began to shiver uncontrollably, and a faint yellow light emanated from deep within him, casting a glow on his previously clouded eyes. Now his eyes shone with a newfound clarity. Child, you don't have to tell me who you are, Zhu Jiesan began, his voice brimming with determination. I and Appos, we always clung to the belief that one day, we will overthrow the demons and nymphs who have enslaved us, and humanity will reclaim its rightful place as the true masters of this world. We exist for redemption, so we must work tirelessly and grow stronger. Please do not bury my body and do not risk exposing yourself. Instead, grow and become even more formidable. Long live humanity. As he uttered his final words, Zhu Jiesan and Appos' voice faded. However, the yellow light that enveloped him grew more intense, eventually converging into a radiant yellow sphere that hovered before him. The radiance from the yellow sphere cast a soft glow upon Tang San and Appos' youthful face, while Zhu Jiesan and Appos' eyes were filled with a profound longing and a radiant devotion. As the light sphere finally took shape, he slumped in place as his strength was wholly drained. The luminous sphere remained suspended in the air, its presence ethereal and elusive. Tang San sensed an extraordinary power within it. Still, this power appeared to be dwindling, teetering on the edge of fading away. It was a responsibility entrusted to him by Zhu Jiesan in the last moments of the young man in Appos' life. Tang San extended his hand without hesitation and enveloped the luminous sphere with his palm, activating his mysterious heaven technique. Considering what Zhu Jiesan had said earlier about those without the demonic god transformation potentially having an edge, Tang San, having activated the mysterious heaven technique, was brimming with newfound confidence. Moreover, though significant, Zhu Jiesan and Appo's demonic god transformation power was at about the third order. This meant that even if it wasn't compatible with Tang San, it was unlikely to cause much harm. Furthermore, Tang San had found himself in this unfamiliar world with a mission to locate his beloved and ultimately transcend this realm and return to his original world. To accomplish this, he had to grow stronger. Now, harnessing the power of this world appeared to be the most convenient path to becoming stronger. The yellow light sphere exuded a gentle warmth. As Tang San grasped it with his hand, he immediately sensed the energy coursing into his body. Rather than absorbing the energy directly, Tang San exercised control, skillfully channeling it into his right arm. Utilizing the precision of his mysterious heaven technique, he sealed off his meridians, preventing the energy from spreading further within his body. In silence, Tang San watched with rapt attention as the yellow light brought about transformations before his eyes. To his amazement, as Tang San used the mysterious heaven technique to connect with the inherited power of the demonic god transformation, the inherited power revealed an unexpected adaptability. It willingly fused with his energy, blending seamlessly. At first, it displayed a hint of restlessness, even a touch of wildness. Still, upon contact with the energy of the mysterious heaven technique, it swiftly yielded, becoming more pliable and obedient. Tang San maintained his focus, silently using his mysterious heaven technique, as he watched the absorption of the yellow energy. A pleasant warmth enveloped his entire being, and he couldn't and Appo's help but notice a marked improvement in his mysterious heaven technique. Usually, it would have taken him several months of hard work to achieve the same result. Furthermore, the yellow energy seemed to trigger subtle changes in his physique. His meridians, bones, and muscles underwent a strengthening process. This inheritance of the demonic god transformation acted as a tonic, enriching and revitalizing his body. The energy of the demonic god transformation seemed readily absorbable through his mysterious heaven technique. The ease of absorption contrasted with Zhu Jiesan and Appo's earlier description of blood inheritance as carrying a fatal risk due to incompatibility. During the absorption process, Tang San felt no sense of danger, let alone a threat to his life. It appeared that his mysterious heaven technique allowed him to assimilate the demonic god transformation and Appo's inheritance without complications. The situation was becoming increasingly fascinating. As Tang San pondered the complete assimilation of this inheritance, he couldn't and Appo's help but wonder if he could acquire the leopard flash skill. With that in mind, Tang San swiftly implemented his plan. He approached the lifeless body of a third-order wolf demon and placed his hand on it. Utilizing his mysterious heaven technique, Tang San channeled his energy into the wolf demon in Appo's lifeless form. The wolf demon in Appo's body still held some lingering warmth. As Tang San directed his energy into it, he sensed a faint residual energy. He felt a magnetic pull when he connected with the unknown energy. The mysterious heaven technique allowed him to absorb that energy and seamlessly merge it into his own. Even though the energy was minimal, Tang San was sure it existed. Could this be the bloodline power of the wolf demon? As he retracted his energy from the wolf demon's body, Tang San immediately sensed a hint of green within his energy. In contrast to the yellow demonic god transformation energy he had inherited previously, this touch of green was much fainter, likely owing to the dissipation caused by the death of the third-rank wolf demon. However, this green energy undeniably existed. Like the yellow energy, it was very obedient and seamlessly integrated into the energy of his mysterious heaven technique. However, it was only a subtle enhancement. Simultaneously, it didn't and Appo's clash with the yellow energy but let itself be controlled by his mysterious heaven technique. It appeared that his body was subtly and gradually absorbing it. Things were getting interesting. Tang San quickly approached the corpse of the other wolf demon and repeated the same procedure. This one had been deceased for a similar amount of time, and the absorbed bloodline power was nearly identical. After finishing these tasks, he didn't and Appo's waste any time. He erased his footprints and promptly left, returning to the village. He chose not to bury the bodies as Zhu Jiesan had advised. Zhu Jiesan had warned him that leaving too many traces could result in being discovered. Tang San held Zhu Jiesan and Appo's words in deep memory. The Redemption Society was a group dedicated to the survival of humanity. This may be the first good news he had encountered since arriving. It signified that not all humans were apathetic slaves. There was still a force actively working toward the future of humanity. Regrettably, these individuals also carried the bloodlines of demons and nymphs. Tang San returned quietly to the village, sharing a wooden house with a dozen other children. Very few of these children could speak fluently, and Tang San typically behaved like them. Once he entered the wooden house, Tang San closed his eyes and curled up in a corner. For him, tonight had proven to be quite rewarding. The most crucial aspect was gaining a deeper understanding of this world and discovering the existence of a human resistance organization. Another significant achievement was acquiring knowledge about demonic god transformation and further understanding the uniqueness of the mysterious heaven technique. At this moment, his meridians were warm and appeared nourished by the power he had absorbed earlier. He could distinctly sense that his strength seemed to be on the rise. This improvement had nothing to do with his internal energy. It was a physical enhancement. With barely any food, nutrition was hard to find in this place. Tang San and Appo's only recourse was to draw in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth through the mysterious heaven technique to sustain his body. However, this time it was different. The power of the demonic god transformation and the bloodline energy of the two wolf demons nourished his meridians, bones, and organs, resulting in a comprehensive enhancement. The presence of the mysterious heaven technique allowed them to coexist without conflict, making them easier to absorb. Could it be that the mysterious heaven technique had transformed into a devouring divine technique upon arriving in this world? A technique capable of absorbing the bloodline power of demons and nymphs? He wondered whether it would have the same effect when they were alive. If it could, that would be genuinely terrifying. Of course, there were also hidden risks. Will it be harmful if I absorb too many bloodline types? What if mixing all these random types of energy will cause problems with my cultivation? To know how these developments would unfold, he needed to monitor the changes in his body following this absorption. As a human possessing the ability of demonic god transformation, he could liberate himself from servitude to the demons and nymphs. He could enter a major city and seek out the Redemption Society. Tang San quietly formulated some plans in his mind. Once he located the Redemption Society, joining them would undoubtedly facilitate his search for Xiao Wu in her reincarnated form. This organization wasn't an Appo's, small, and it was safe to assume it was present in every major city. Wind Wolf Town remained unchanged despite the deaths of those few individuals. At least nothing changed in their slave village. Tang San dedicated 7 days to digesting the absorbed demonic god transformation energy and the bloodline power of the two wolf demons. After digestion, his most significant sensation was that he had grown stronger. His body had undeniably become stronger. With his experience in cultivation, he naturally understood that the strength of one and Appo's physique was closely tied to the limits of their cultivation. Without a sturdy and resilient physique, it would be impossible to withstand more potent energy. Following this enhancement, he was confident he could confront a third-order wolf demon head-on. However, this wasn't an Appo's his biggest achievement. An even more significant gain was that he retained the abilities of demonic god transformation and the wolf demons. Tang San entered the forest in silence once more. With narrowed eyes, he suddenly activated the mysterious heaven technique, and his bloodlines began to surge. He lightly tapped the ground with his toes. In an instant, a yellow light burst forth, dramatically increasing his speed, and he resembled a bolt of lightning as he shot forward 10 meters. Using the mysterious heaven technique had depleted a substantial portion of his energy, and the rapid burst of speed had taken a toll on his physique. His entire body felt somewhat sore as he stood firmly on the ground. However, Tang San didn't in Appo's hesitate. He raised both hands, and a faint green light materialized at the center of his palms. With a swing of his hands, he released 2 wind blades, each roughly 3 inches in size. These green wind blades soared 5 meters before vanishing into the air. Yes, he had gained these abilities by absorbing those energies. The newly discovered devouring ability of the mysterious heaven technique allowed him to acquire the leopard flash and wind blade from Zhu Jessen and Appo's demonic god transformation and the wolf demon's bloodline, respectively. Tang San had an Appo's T foreseen this development. After absorbing the two bloodline powers, he sensed that these abilities had integrated into his memory. Whenever he wished to use them, they emerged effortlessly. Strangely, his body remained unchanged, unlike the transformation into a beast that occurred with the demonic god transformation. Instead, it consumed the energy of his mysterious heaven technique. The energy, once colored in yellow and green, had returned to its original state. The absorption of the bloodline power seemed to have given him two new skills. Tang San could now use them at will. However, regardless of how much he practiced, these two skills Wuden and Oppos. T progress. When he first used these abilities, he noticed they were significantly weaker than when Zhu Jiesin and the wolf demon had used them. Also, it seemed that these skills were fixed and would not improve. While they did have some value, skills that Wuden and Oppos T be enhanced in terms of power. Wuden and Oppos T substantially impact his growth. The silver lining was that the abilities he had absorbed didn't and Oppos T clash. Instead, they appeared to undergo a conversion thanks to the mysterious heaven technique. Overall, this was undoubtedly a good thing. Tang San had some guesses and ideas about the whole process. There was no denying that he was distinct from the humans in this world, and the mysterious heaven technique was equally exceptional. As he continuously explored the interaction between the mysterious heaven technique and the power system of this world, more experiments would undoubtedly yield more insights. Learning these two skills was ultimately advantageous. Zhu Jiesin and the wolf demons Waren and Oppos T particularly formidable. Hence, the absorbed abilities naturally had limited effects. However, what if his mysterious heaven technique gained greater strength in the future, and the absorbed demonic god transformation power became more potent? The skills that he could earn then would also be more powerful. At the very least, they provide an easier path to enhance his strength. Furthermore, this devouring method would accelerate his cultivation. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in this world was truly abundant. Tang San believed that, at his current pace of advancement, by the time he reached the age of 20, he could reach the ninth order of the mysterious heaven technique. This corresponded to the ninth order in this world in Oppos' power hierarchy. Naturally, this possibility hinged on the condition that his cultivation proceeded without significant setbacks. His greatest advantage lay in the mysterious heaven technique in Oppos' exceptional compatibility with the spiritual energy of this world. Days passed, each one blending into the next. He toiled during the day and devoted himself to cultivation at night. Tang San settled back into his routine, leading an uneventful and routine life. 2 more years went by, and Tang San welcomed his 8th year. Possibly owing to the absorption of the bloodline power, he had experienced a growth spurt beyond that of regular children. At the age of 8, he had already surpassed the height of most 10-year-olds despite remaining rather slender. His noticeable stature drew attention, resulting in him being assigned more labor. Tang San and Oppos' recent mood was rather gloomy. The reason was straightforward. It had been 2 years, and he had yet to make a breakthrough to the 4th order of the mysterious heaven technique. Initially, he believed that by the age of 7, he would be capable of reaching the 4th order. However, when he reached the 3rd order's pinnacle, he realized he had encountered a bottleneck. This barrier didn't in Oppos' appear to result from his limitations but rather from a restraining force inherent to Phelan Planet. Advancing from the 3rd to the 4th order was a formidable challenge. Tang San had diligently cultivated and amassed power but could not overcome this suppression. 2 years had passed, and at 8, he had only reached the 3rd order of the mysterious heaven technique. Furthermore, the collected energy didn't and Oppos' appeared to assist him in breaking through. Leopard Flash and Wind Blade had become second nature to him. Yet, their power hadn't and Oppos' grown alongside the advancement of his mysterious heaven technique. It seemed as if these two skills had indeed reached a plateau. With this, it seemed that all of his abilities were at a bottleneck. This predicament was caused by a significant issue, the lack of a path to higher advancement. Without such a path, he could only continue to grow at the pace he was currently at. What could he accomplish with the power at the pinnacle of the 3rd order? He would remain an insignificant presence in this world. Tang San was aware that he needed to embark on some daring endeavors. Today, his task was to transport trees. In the village, He assisted the adults in carrying the trees the grown men had cut down to a wooden cart that would bring them to the town. 7 children were aiding the 4 adults in transporting the load of wood on the cart. The adults pulled the cart with ropes at the front while the children pushed from behind. The road was covered in gravel but relatively even. The cart wasn't oppose, moving quickly, and the adults at the front were already putting forth their full strength, progressing step by step. Tang San had visited Wind Wolf Town a few times in the past. The town and Appo's residents were exclusively members of the Wind Wolf clan, a subgroup of the wolf demons. The Wind Wolf Lord resided in the most prominent house in the town and Appo's center. Wind Wolf Town was the residence of over 1,000 Wind Wolf clan members, surrounded by 7 human slave villages that served and supported them. Wind wolves were predatory, and humans, including the occasional human slaves, would become their food. Of course, other animals also served as their sources of nutrition. Compared to other demons, wind wolves didn't and Appo's exhibit an extreme interest in consuming humans, making the likelihood of humans being eaten relatively low in this area. It wasn't an Appo's due to the wind wolves and Appo's compassion. Instead, they recognized that the real value of humans lay in their capacity for labor. As Tang San pushed the cart, he observed the town and Appo's surroundings and at the same time speculated on why he had reached a bottleneck. A potential reason was a conflict between the cultivation of the mysterious heaven technique and this world's fundamental rules. Given his present abilities, it seemed impossible to escape the constraints imposed by these rules. The unseen presence of the Lord of the Plain frequently shaped these rules. Being a former god king, Tang San was well acquainted with this aspect. Having lived here for 8 years, although he had never ventured beyond Wind Wolf Town, one thing was clear. The spiritual energy in this world was exceedingly abundant, reflecting the overall strength of the plane. The higher beings in such a potent plane would undoubtedly possess formidable power, potentially surpassing the divine order in his original world. Therefore, the lord of this plane, in other words the avatar of the planet itself, was likely to be extremely powerful. From his prior interactions with Zhu Jiesin and the absorption of wind attribute energy from the wolf demons, he had a vague sense that the mysterious heaven technique might possess the ability to absorb the powers of this world. Perhaps the reason he was experiencing suppression was also related to this capability. Breaking through would become exceedingly challenging by relying solely on the mysterious heaven technique. He needed to explore an alternative approach. Drawing from his perspective as a former god king, the most direct method appeared to be gaining recognition from the Lord of the Plain and its governing rules. The Lord of the Plain usually manifested as an intangible entity, and all the rules within the plane were put in place to safeguard themselves and uphold equilibrium. Consequently, the best approach for Tang San to continue his advancement was to strengthen himself within the rules of this world. He had to conceal the existence of his mysterious heaven technique, thereby reducing the rules and Appo's awareness and suppression. This would allow him to make a breakthrough and continue his cultivation. He was observing Wind Wolf Town with this strategy in mind. The most effective means to improve his capabilities in this plane were undoubtedly enhancing his Wind Wolf abilities, or refining the Leopard Flash ability. Finding another individual who had Leopard Flash would be almost impossible. However, Wind Wolf clan members were most prevalent in Wind Wolf Town. His strategy was to locate a suitable Wind Wolf around the 3rd rank and attempt to use the mysterious heaven technique to extract the bloodline power from the Wind Wolf, enhancing his existing Wind Blade ability. If this method proved successful, he would monitor the Wind Wolf in order to confirm whether the Wind Wolf could still regenerate its bloodline power, even after having its bloodline power extracted. If it could recover, then the chances of him being discovered would decrease significantly. With the continuous enhancement of the Wind Blade, his Wind Wolf bloodline would grow stronger, enabling him to overcome the bottleneck of his cultivation. Tang San had devised this plan after meticulous consideration. Given his abilities, the Leopard Flash, Wind Blade, and the peak of the 3rd order in the mysterious heaven technique, he was confident that he could ambush a Wind Wolf. As they walked, the wooden cart unexpectedly stopped, prompting the children behind to pause their movements instinctively. One of the youngest children even tumbled to the ground due to the sudden stop. Tang San promptly controlled his strength, refraining from exerting any unusual force, and pretended to react just like the other children. The adult at the front also stopped and appeared to be gazing in a specific direction. Tang San could discern from the side that their expressions held a tinge of envy. A thing worth noting was that these humans, raised as slaves from a young age, were typically emotionally numb and rarely showed any visible mood changes, so this was a rather unusual occurrence. Tang San followed their line of sight and observed several individuals posting notices not far away. They were humans just like himself, but in contrast to the slaves, the attire of these individuals appeared relatively clean and well kept. Tang San narrowed his eyes and activated his purple demon eyes, which enabled him to see clearly. He read the notice, which stated that a bloodline assessment would occur in 3 days, and any slaves who had some measure of Wind Wolf bloodline were invited to participate in the testing. If the tests were successful, they could reside in Wind Wolf Town and cultivate as vassals of the Wind Wolf clan. Bloodline assessment? Tang understood instantly. Although he often came to Wind Wolf Town for labor, this was the first time he had seen such notices. Undoubtedly, the individuals who were posting notices were also vassals of the Wind Wolf clan, possessing the coveted Wind Wolf bloodline and enjoying a higher status than ordinary slaves. It was apparent that they had moved beyond the life of slavery at the very least. Curiosity began to stir in Tang San and Appo's mind. If this was indeed the situation, his strategy could be altered. Being disguised as a slave did offer certain advantages, but it also came with a major problem. His interactions with this world were severely limited. Given his limited exposure, the possibility of exploring more and accessing the true resources of this world appeared grim. With that in mind, the bloodline screening event in Wind Wolf Town meant a good chance for change. From a human standpoint, it was clear even for a slave with the slightest shred of self-esteem that this assessment was a tremendous insult. Who exactly were the humans likely to possess Wind Wolf blood? They were humans of mixed ancestry. That would mean that these individuals were born from the unions between the creatures of the Wind Wolf clan and humans. However, in this world, humans were utterly unqualified to be companions of the demons. Rather than partners, they were nothing more than objects used by the demons to release their carnal desires. Tang San spent time thinking deeply about the Redemption Society. He understood that its formation as a secret resistance movement showed that some humans held solid moral convictions and knew the world and Appo's true nature well. The vast number of human slaves, far outnumbering the Wind Wolf clan, showed the abundance of humans in this world. The day after the notices were posted, the villages began responding to the published messages. Each village had appointed wolf demons to oversee the slaves. In the early morning, these wolf demons gathered everyone in the village, young and old alike. The older humans seemed numb and quiet, while the younger ones, around 20 years of age, still had a hint of hope in their eyes. They were the most likely candidates to awaken the Wind Wolf bloodline. Amid the crowd, Tang San felt a deep sadness. The humans in front of him were hoping to awaken a bloodline that could have only been born from their mothers being violated by demons. How could he not feel that it was tragic? He didn't and Appo's resent the rule of the demons and nymphs in and of itself, as it was the natural order of this world. But the sight of his fellow humans living as numb slaves and giving up every trace of humanity just to survive filled him with sorrow. These feelings had grown over the past 8 years, fueling his resolve to find his wife and empower humans to live in this world with strength and dignity. Pay close attention. I and Appo's am about to awaken your bloodlines. Any slaves who awaken the bloodline of our Wind Wolf clan can take the test in 2 days. Those with strong enough bloodline power will be granted the status of vassals and the opportunity to study in the town. Exceptional vassals might even achieve the same status as our clan members. This is your chance to rise to the ranks. Therefore, during the awakening process, be mindful of your bloodline. Dawn and Appo's suppress any changes. Allow your transformations to manifest. Is that clear to everyone? Said the wolf demon. The human slaves bowed simultaneously, displaying a mixture of fear and reverence. The wolf demon nodded in satisfaction, his fangs protruding as his eyes emitted an increasingly bright green light. With a fierce glint in his eyes, he suddenly raised his head and let out a piercing howl. With this howl, numerous other howls appeared to reverberate in the distance. Tang San stood a bit farther away, yet his senses were sharp enough to distinctly perceive the wolf demon and Appo's bloodline surging and unleashing a searing wave of bloodline energy as it roared. This energy surged outward, causing the humans nearby to shiver slightly. Following the conclusion of the initial howl, the wolf demon began to howl once more, filling the air with a dense presence of blood energy. Out of nowhere, a young man positioned to the left of Tang San suddenly convulsed, as if he was enduring intense pain. He emitted a strange cry and violently toppled forward, resting on all fours with his face pressed against the ground. Strands of greenish-gray hair protruded from his skin, but the man wasn't even aware. He appeared to be in great distress and he was writhing in agony. Was this the awakening of the Wind Wolf bloodline? Tang San took his time. He refrained from revealing himself, and instead just quietly observed the unfolding scene. Apart from the young man on the opposite side, further away, there was also a teenage girl clutching her head with her hands, crouching down in place. It appeared that some changes were also occurring within her body, though they were fainter. Among the remaining individuals, most displayed little more than quivering and trembling. When they cast sidelong glances at the two undergoing transformations, there was even a hint of envy in their eyes. Came another howl. As the third howl neared its conclusion, Tang San realized he couldn't delay further. He abruptly crouched down, gripping his head in feigned pain. This unexpected move startled the children surrounding him. After the three howls, the wolf demon and Appo's gaze moved across the group. Tang San and the others, who had undergone significant changes, drew the most attention. The wolf demon approached them and escorted them away individually. The young man, whose skin had grown wolf hair, writhed on the ground, undergoing noticeable transformations. He drooled and appeared to be unconscious. The girl and Appo's changes were less dramatic, with only a bit of hair appearing on her neck. Tang San, on the other hand, showed no changes whatsoever. The wolf demon didn't pay any heed to the young man and the girl. Instead, he kicked Tang San hard, sending him rolling a few times. "Kid, I hope you are not just pretending to possess our noble bloodline. You better pray that your bloodline is genuine. Otherwise, you and Appo's end up as the sacrificial offering. Take them away," the wolf demon scoffed. Several second-order wolf demons came forward, placed the three on a cart, and pulled them away. Tang San had expected more slaves to awaken the Wind Wolf bloodline. However, when they gathered, there were only 13 people of varying ages. 4 individuals displayed clear signs of undergoing a wolf transformation, indicating a more concentrated Wind Wolf bloodline. Tang San and Appo's body remained unchanged with no signs of transformation, but he was the only one among them. The others all exhibited varying degrees of transformation. They were assembled in preparation for the bloodline test that would be conducted 2 days later. What caught Tang San off guard was that they actually had meat for dinner that night, marking the first time he had eaten meat since his arrival. Nevertheless, he had no appetite. Before dinner, 3 out of the 4 individuals who had undergone the most significant transformations died. Tang San went to examine their bodies, and the reasons behind their deaths were identical. The fragile slave physique Kuden and Appo's endured the demonic god transformation that took place during the awakening of the Wind Wolf bloodline, causing organ failure or ruptured blood vessels, ultimately resulting in their demise. The wolf demons came during the night and removed the 3 bodies. The remaining humans silently ate their meals, not even saying a word to each other. The food for dinner was just barely edible. The meat was chewy and fibrous, and its origin remained a mystery. Someone had simply boiled the meal, and it lacked any discernible flavor. After dinner, Tang San looked for a quiet corner and sat by himself. With 2 more days remaining until the bloodline test, he wasn't Appo's concerned about testing positive for the Wind Wolf bloodline. He had his methods, and wouldn't Appo's have come here if he didn't Appo's. While he closed his eyes to rest and silently readied himself to cultivate his mysterious heaven technique, he suddenly felt a presence and instinctively opened his eyes. He immediately noticed that someone was now standing beside him. It was a girl who appeared slightly older than him. Tang San recognized her. She was from the same village. Despite looking slightly older, she had a petite frame. Her face was smeared with dirt, but she still looked pretty cute. "You," the girl spoke, finally opening her mouth. Her voice was slightly hoarse. Tang San replied. Communication among human slaves was pretty uncommon, particularly among the children. Interaction was more common among adults. These children had not received an education since their early years, leaving them ignorant. Can you really do it? The girl inquired in a hushed tone. Tang San looked at her in astonishment, and the girl continued in a whispered voice, if you can and Appos. You and Appos. You and Appos LL die. She and Appos. Concerned about me? Warmth enveloped Tang San and Appos' heart, a first since arriving in this world. The girl gestured toward a corner of the nearby wooden house, where a heap of hay was stacked against the damaged walls. If it doesn't and Appos work, you should run. If you're just pretending and they catch you, you're dead, the girl whispered, her voice no longer as hoarse as earlier. Thank you, I can handle it, Tang San responded softly. The girl raised her eyes. Her slight frame quivered briefly when she met his composed gaze. Then she promptly lowered her head and uttered, "Oh." She shifted around, seemingly ready to leave. I and Appos. Tang San, what in Appos is your name? Tang San inquired in a subdued tone. Besides Zhu Jessen, she was the first human he had communicated with, and they were both slaves. The girl looked at him again, showing no surprise at his numerical name. After hesitating momentarily, she whispered, my name is Ling Muxue. Hearing her name, Tang San was taken aback. It didn't and Appos. Sound like a slave in Appos' name at all. My mother was Ling Muxue stammered. My mother and I are from the same village. She taught me. Despite her limited ability to express herself, Tang San grasped the essence of her words. It was clear that her mother had caught the attention of a wolf demon. Despite her status as a slave, she had enjoyed some privileges. At the very least, she could reside with her child and impart some knowledge. As a result, this girl and Appos' thinking was evidently more sophisticated, and she was more knowledgeable than other children her age. She even had a reasonably pleasant name. All right. Tang San kept his response brief, simply offering a nod in acknowledgement. Can you really do it? Ling Muxue inquired, gazing at him again, her eyes filled with evident concern. Yes, Tang San nodded once more. At that moment, other human slaves had already noticed them and were now staring in their direction. Ling Muxue didn't and Appos' dared to say anything further and simply nodded at Tang San once more before shrinking away and moving to the other side. Perhaps due to the brief interaction with Ling Muxue, Tang San and Appos' mood lifted slightly. In this unfamiliar land, experiencing a sense of warmth was akin to discovering a still-burning ember in a cold hearth. After all, it had been 8 long years. 2 days flew by quickly. During this time, the 10 survivors had the best food they and Appos' ever had. Their mood was much better than when they had arrived. The older kids among them were particularly excited. They knew this was their big chance. Among the 10, Ling Muxue was the lone girl, and she went unnoticed by the others. Everyone in Appos' attention was fixated on the awakening of their bloodlines. If they passed the bloodline assessment, it meant they would no longer remain slaves but would instead become vassals of the Wind Wolf clan. For the slaves, it was akin to a miraculous transformation. The status of slaves in this world was unbelievably low, to the extent that they were regarded no differently from livestock and sometimes even worse. Finally, the door to the wooden house swung open, eliciting eager anticipation from most of the occupants. Several large wolf demons entered and yelled at the humans, instructing Tang San and the others to accompany them. As they stepped out of the wooden house, the sunlight appeared a bit too dazzling, but it brought a welcomed warmth. Ling Muxue trailed closely behind Tang San, and he sensed her concerned gaze again. Don and Appos' worry, Tang San quietly reassured her. Ling Muxue hesitated for a moment, then looked into his eyes. Tang San nodded in response. Over the past 2 days, they had lived in a wooden house within the town. Today, they were escorted to the central area of Wind Wolf Town, a square spanning around 1,000 square meters. Numerous members of the Wind Wolf clan had already gathered around the square. At the center of the square stood an altar. What immediately caught Tang San and Appos' attention was that at the base of this altar made of stones bound with mortar, he could faintly see that mixed in the mortar were also skulls. The skulls of humans. Tang San clenched his fists subconsciously. Even in death, this is how they will be treated. He felt a flame igniting in his heart. As the former God King, his mental fortitude exceeded that of ordinary beings. However, at this very moment, he yearned to destroy the demons and nymphs, every last one of them. Tang San and Appo's eyes grew cold as a lingering intent to kill festered within his heart. Ling Muxue appeared to sense something and shivered, instinctively taking 2 steps back to put some distance between them. Her action surprised Tang San, but at that moment, he felt as if he had regained something, a trace of his former self. He still retained vivid memories of his past life, particularly his youth, when he had walked a path akin to the road to hell. Regaining control over his emotions, he partially closed his eyes, concealing that spark of determination in his heart. All right, demons. Very well. Tang San and the other 9 individuals were led to a corner of Wind Wolf Town Square. Beneath a massive tree, an elderly wolf demon stood on a grand-looking chair, presiding over the gathering. Her eyes were emerald green, and she clutched a staff in her right hand. Standing by her side was a middle-aged human who seemed to be in his 40s. He had a lean face and sported a rather lavish attire. A faint green light flickered in his eyes, and he gave a slight bow, displaying a respectful demeanor. The wolf demon who had escorted Tang San and the others had approached the elderly wolf demon and offered a bow. Esteemed High Priest, this year, all the awakened bloodline slaves have been gathered here, the wolf demon proclaimed. The High Priest nodded before gesturing toward the human beside her. The man first paid his respects to her, and then advanced to stand before Tang San and the others. Tang San silently assessed the High Priest and Appo's aura, an aura of truly great strength. He couldn't and Appo's even discern her actual cultivation level with his current power. Of course, this was without tapping into his divine consciousness. However, he refrained from using it lightly, as what remained was exceedingly scarce and couldn't and Appo's be quickly replenished in his current situation. He would only readily use his divine consciousness in a life or death position. He knew his divine consciousness could only be truly harnessed when he grew more formidable. As the man was about to speak, the nearby wolf demons abruptly parted ways and bowed simultaneously. A colossal wolf demon, standing over 3 meters tall, approached. This wolf demon clearly possessed immense power, with bulging muscles that radiated strength. His eyes were deep green. They were not as intense as the High Priest and Appo's, but they emanated potent energy fluctuations. He advanced toward the High Priest and slightly bowed, placing his right hand over his chest. High Priest, greeted the powerful wolf demon. A faint smile graced the High Priest and Appo's aged countenance. A Wind Wolf Lord, you have arrived. Following the bloodline testing of these slaves, we shall commence the ancestral sacrifice. Are you prepared, my lord? She remained seated in her initial spot, signifying that she, the High Priest, was in fact the most prominent authority figure in Wind Wolf Town. Her authority surpasses that of the Wind Wolf Lord. Everything is arranged, High Priest. The offerings are prepared. We would kindly request the High Priest to officiate, the Wind Wolf Lord said with great respect. Good. After assessing the bloodlines of these slaves, we will begin immediately, the High Priest said calmly. Let us start, the Wind Wolf Lord instructed the middle-aged human man, who had already positioned himself in front of Tang San and the others. Yes, my lord. The man acknowledged with a respectful bow before directing his attention toward Tang San and the other 9 individuals. Pay close attention, the man began. During the bloodline assessment, if you experience any reactions, Don and Appo's, hesitate to display them. There and Appo's, no need to restrain yourself or be fearful. Do your best, do you understand? Tang San glanced up at the hunched man in front of him, catching a fleeting glimpse of sorrow in the man and Appo's eyes that in the next instant, the middle-aged man gradually extended his arms, gazing up at the sky and shouted, Mighty wind, bestow your blessings upon your people. Allow them to grasp the true essence of the wind. As the man fervently chanted, his body expanded, and greenish-gray fur sprouted from his skin. His upper body garments instantly tore apart, unveiling powerful muscles, while a radiant green light emanated from him. 4th order? Or maybe the 5th order? That was Tang San and Appo's initial impression. This middle-aged man was the human with the highest cultivation he had encountered so far in this world. The atmosphere around them grew more and more saturated with wind elemental energy, and this dense wind energy enveloped all of the 10 candidates. Seems like Wang Yanfeng and Appo's control over the wind element has improved significantly, said the Wind Wolf Lord, turning to the High Priest. The High Priest responded calmly, naturally as a slave, he can only rise to the 4th order at best. However, humans do have some talent in terms of control. He has simply become more skilled. As for you, my lord, instead of spending so much time with those she-wolves, you should concentrate on training and enhancing your strength. Otherwise, you and Appo's LL be ridiculed again at our clan and Appo's grand ceremony in a few years. The Wind Wolf Lord and Appo's expression stiffened. I understand, he replied icily. As Wang Yanfeng's wind energy enveloped them, Tang San and the other 9 individuals were encased in a subtle green glow. Tang San squinted his eyes and silently connected with the wind element. He sensed that it affected his wind blade, which he duplicated using his inner energy. He carefully activated the power of his wind wolf bloodline, merging it with his own, resulting in a shift in his aura. Suddenly, he noticed that the dense wind element surrounding him was being absorbed after his bloodline had transformed. The energy of the wind blade appeared to be accumulating. Being astute and experienced, he swiftly grasped a crucial insight. In the past, he had struggled to enhance his wind blade and leopard flash due to the constraints of his bloodline and the absence of compatible and concentrated elemental support. Amidst this potent wind element, the wind blade showed a distinct response. This implied that, given the appropriate conditions, he could enhance his wind blade. Roar! At that moment, among the 10 individuals, the young man who had exhibited the most pronounced beastly transformation earlier had his attire ripped, with fur sprouting from his body. He visibly expanded in physical size, and a faint green light flickered in his eyes. Wang Yanfeng and Appo's eyes sparkled, and he gestured with a wave of his hand, conjuring a whirlwind that promptly enveloped the young man and Appo's body and moved him to the side. This signified that he had successfully passed the evaluation. Tang San refrained from revealing himself too quickly. He recognized that such a dense wind element didn't and Appo's occur naturally, and he was aware that, given his present cultivation level, he couldn't and Appo's created himself. With that in mind, he took the chance to absorb as much as he could. He felt that it might prove advantageous in breaking through his limitations. To his astonishment, the second individual to show a reaction was the girl standing beside him. Ling Muxue exclaimed softly as her body underwent a slight expansion. Her transformation was less dramatic than the young man and Appo's. She only developed fur on her neck. However, the green light in her eyes grew notably brighter. A faint green aura enveloped her body, and she even levitated slightly. Wang Yanfeng waved his hand once more, employing the wind element to guide Ling Muxue toward him and gently lowering her to the side. He remarked, although the bloodline ISN and Appo's particularly potent, its compatibility with the wind element is excellent. Next, 2 boys, approximately 15 or 16 years old, also had intense reactions. Wang Yanfeng appeared noticeably anxious, and the concentration of the wind element he was harnessing intensified. Nonetheless, Tang San could discern sweat forming on Wang Yanfeng and Appo's forehead. Maintaining such a high concentration of the wind element exacted a substantial toll on his energy. It was clear that Wang Yanfeng was squeezing out his last drops of energy in hope that a few more people would successfully pass the bloodline assessment. That should be enough. If it and Appo's not, then so be it. Let us not delay the grand ceremony, the Wind Wolf Lord declared coldly. Wang Yanfeng implored, my lord, grant me 1 more minute. I believe there might be others. Tang San realized he couldn't and Appo's delay any further. He closed his eyes and slowly raised his hand in front of him. When he reopened his eyes, a green light shone within, and the dense wind element surrounding him briefly condensed. Then, a wind blade approximately 3 inches in length formed within his palm. Though the wind blade wasn't an Appo's large, it moved very nimbly. The following moment, Tang San appeared to lose control of the wind blade, and it shot into the air with a sonic boom. Wind blade? Wang Yanfeng was taken aback, but then swiftly gestured with his hand, pulling Tang San out of the assessment area. The high priest was primly seated on her chair, overseeing the ceremony, but she furrowed her brow at the sight and glanced in Tang San and Appo's direction. At that moment, Wang Yanfeng seized his control over the wind element. He panted heavily, evidently having reached his limit. The physical change ISN and Appo's T major, but he clearly had a strong connection to the wind element. I believe that he awakened the bloodline ability of our Wind Wolf clan. The Wind Blade, Wang Yanfeng explained. He was catching his breath and speaking directly to the high priest. The limited physical change might be due to age, somewhat like what I went through in the past. The high priest responded with nothing but indifference. She briefly glanced at Tang San, then turned her attention elsewhere. To her, a child like him held little significance. 10 individuals participated in the assessment, with 5 exhibiting a reaction and therefore passing. The remaining 5 appeared suddenly disoriented and bewildered. The Wind Wolf Lord gestured with his hand, prompting several robust wolf demons to swiftly advance. They seized the 5 who hadn't and Appo's passed the assessment and forcibly escorted them to the side. At this juncture, the high priest rose from her seat and proceeded step by step toward the altar. "Let the sacrificial ceremony commence," she announced solemnly. "Yes," responded the Wind Wolf Lord. He bowed respectfully to the high priest, trailing behind her as they made their way to the altar. Wang Yanfeng did not accompany them but remained alongside the 5 who had successfully passed the assessment. His breathing had somewhat steadied, and he lowered his head, fixing his gaze on Tang San. Tang San and Appo's expression appeared somewhat vacant and bewildered. With his wealth of experience in disguise spanning 3 lifetimes, his Ade was flawless. The high priest ascended the platform while the Wind Wolf Lord positioned himself beside her. He raised his head toward the sky and let out a prolonged howl. As he howled, all the wolf demons in attendance joined in, lifting their voices toward the heavens. In an instant, the entire Wind Wolf town echoed with wolf howls, creating the illusion that a horde of beasts was mounting an assault. The howling gradually tapered off as the high priest lifted her staff. In contrast with her elderly appearance, her emerald green eyes gleamed with fierce intensity. "Today is the day we pay homage to our ancestors. Among the sacred clans, our wolf clan is deemed a formidable clan. The mighty wolf ancestor gave us our bloodline, enabling us to procreate and prosper. Let us bring forth the most exquisite blood offerings to honor the wolf ancestor and fortify the legacy of our Wind Wolf lineage," she uttered. While speaking, she abruptly turned her head and fixed her gaze upon the 5 human slaves who had fallen short in the assessment and were now standing against the altar. "You have traces of our clan and Appo's bloodline, yet you cannot awaken our clan and Appo's power," she declared with disdain. "Your impure blood presumes to obscure the essence of our Wind Wolf lineage. Only bloodshed can purify this disgrace. Kill them." The wolf demons appeared ready for this command. The moment the high priest issued the order, the wolf demons killed the slaves, and the sacrifice was completed. This event unfolded so abruptly that it even took Tang San by surprise, and as he processed what he was watching, he immediately felt his blood rushing to his head. His muscles tensed up, and his fists clenched involuntarily. The next moment, his vision dimmed, and a figure materialized noiselessly before him. The person obstructing his line of sight was none other than Wang Yanfeng. Tang San pressed his lips together, feeling an overwhelming urge to rush forward. However, Wang Yanfeng's obstruction gave him pause, giving Tang San time to cool his head. While the Wolf Windlord was most likely at the 5th order, the High Priest could very well be at the 6th. If he started a fight the way he was now, the only possible conclusion would be getting himself killed without accomplishing anything. Yet he couldn't help but feel that he had to do something. Though the humans here were practically soulless beings, they were still of the same human race, humans like him. When the wolf demons were killing humans, it was almost like they were slaughtering livestock. In fact, in the eyes of these demons, humans were of no higher status than animals. The High Priest and Appo's voice sounded again. "Present the offerings." Tang San shifted his stance slightly, moving away from Wang Yanfeng and Appo's obstruction and taking a good look at what was going on. Wang Yanfeng seemed to have sensed his movements as he turned his head toward Tang San, furrowing his brow slightly. At that moment, the other people who had experienced an awakening finally processed what was going on and started trembling in fear. This time Tang San appeared scared as well. When Wang Yanfeng saw his expression, he heaved a sigh of relief. Then he extended his right hand and pushed Tang San back again, positioning him behind his back. Tang San wasn't sure of Wang Yanfeng and Appo's exact role within the Wind Wolf clan. However, based on his earlier observations during the awakening ritual, he could tell that Wang Yanfeng still retained a sense of humanity. Before he was pushed back to the place behind Wang Yanfeng, Tang San saw naked human women being carried onto the altar, one by one, for a total of 10. There was no doubt in his mind that these were also among the offerings that the high priest had mentioned. Tang San trembled violently, and he didn't have to fake it. Despite witnessing the numerous human deaths in Wind Wolf Town, he had never seen such brutal and merciless killings before this. Even in his previous life, such intense rage had been rare. As a former god king, he had always maintained tight control over his emotions. However, right at this very moment, how could he possibly stay calm? Oh, great ancestors! Today your descendants offer you the most delectable blood sacrifice. Please bless your descendants and let the Wind Wolf lineage thrive and prosper. Commence the blood offering. Upon the shrill, piercing cry of the high priest, the 10 human women who were brought to the altar had their throats slit. They died instantly, and rivers of blood drenched the altar underneath. The haunting howls of the wolf demons reverberated through the Wind Wolf town once more. For the wolf demons, the grand sacrificial ceremony was a moment of exhilarated frenzy. They just died. 10 humans. Just died. Tang San closed his eyes, overwhelmed by pain. Right this moment there was no doubt in his heart. He wanted to transform this world and everything within it. He yearned to liberate humans from being treated as mere livestock, awaken their potential, and topple the dominion of demons and nymphs. In any world, the law of survival prevailed. He knew that he had to empower humans to bring about change, and there was no other way. The sacrificial ceremony continued, lasting a full half-hour before coming to a close. Tang San and Appo's head was bowed throughout the ceremony, and it was clear that he was trembling. He avoided looking toward the altar and stood silently behind Wang Yanfeng. However, his determination was unwavering. While his first goal was to look for his wife on this Phelan planet, he had just taken on another profound, heavy responsibility within this demon continent. As the ceremony came to an end, the wolf demons scattered. Wang Yanfeng turned around and motioned toward Tang San, Ling Muxue, and the other 3 humans who were proven to possess the Wind Wolf bloodline. The 5 of them cautiously followed Wang Yanfeng to a house on the western side of Wind Wolf Town. This house vastly differed from the one they had previously occupied in the village. The building had 2 stories and was made of wood and stone. It had a front yard enclosed by a fence made of wooden stakes, covering an area of about 100 square meters. Wang Yanfeng opened the courtyard door, leading them into the yard. A door on the 2nd floor swung open, and a beautiful woman stepped out. Is it finally over? The woman whispered when she saw Wang Yanfeng and Appo's return. It is done, Wang Yanfeng replied, sighing softly. Hearing this, the woman lowered her head, eyes welling up with tears. Were there children this time round? Yes, 5 of them didn't, and Appo's pass, Wang Yanfeng said somberly. The woman knew what it meant for someone to fail this test. She lowered her head, and Wang Yanfeng pulled her into a gentle embrace. The woman's voice was hoarse, low, and quiet. Wang Yanfeng and the woman welcomed Tang San and the others into the house. It was warm with a crackling fireplace. The decor was straightforward, but the room they were in had all the necessary furniture. The ground floor had rooms on both sides and a staircase leading to the upper floor. Sensing the warmth inside the house, Tang San and the other 4 were somewhat moved. Everything else aside, it was still a significant improvement from their previous situation. The woman moved to the side and poured some hot water, offering a cup to each of them. As Tang San held the cup in his hand, he suddenly felt like he was given a new lease on life, while Ling Muxue couldn't and Appo's hold back her flowing tears. Wang Yanfeng sighed and spoke, You and Appo's. Both fortunate and unfortunate. Being chosen means you and Appo's V been granted a new chance at life. My dear children, starting today, I will be your teacher. I hope that you will do your best to learn everything I teach you. You can only survive by studying hard and acquiring the skills you need to defend yourselves. In 3 years, there will be another evaluation. You must defeat the wolf demons of your age to become official vassals. Otherwise, well, you and Oppos, V witness what happened to those youngsters today. He paused for a moment to gather his thoughts. I and Oppos, am not sure if you can fully comprehend what I and Oppos am saying, but I and Oppos, LL put all my efforts into teaching you. Starting today, you and Oppos, LL live here with me. You will have your own house only after you pass the assessment and become vassals. He turned to the woman beside him and introduced her. This is my wife Chiu Jing. We and Oppos, V both gone through what you experienced today. We survived by becoming vassals. In the next 3 years, you and Oppos, LL have to work diligently to qualify as vassals so that you don't have to be slaves anymore. Now go rest. My wife will take you to your rooms. 2 boys will share 1 room, and the girl will have her own. Tomorrow your study program will begin. Always wear this badge and keep it on you. When you go out, remember to take it with you. This badge will distinguish you from slaves. With that, Wang Yanfeng handed out a wooden badge to each of them. The badges were adorned with intricate patterns and embedded with a bone-like material resembling a wolf and Oppos. S. Feng. Their rooms were on the ground floor, and Chiu Jing led them there right away. Tang San was assigned to share a room with a boy who was just over 10 years old. A shared bathroom was on the ground floor, and Chiu Jing instructed them to clean themselves properly. After washing up, they each received a set of coarse linen clothes. Although the cloth was rough, it was thick and it kept them warm. After cleaning up, the children assembled on the first floor for dinner. The meal consisted of some root vegetables, boiled and seasoned with salt, and cooked meat. Considering their situation, it was actually quite a substantial meal. Even though it was not seasoned with anything but salt, the meat soup was still flavorful, and it somewhat lifted everyone and Oppos' mood. Tang San Kuden and Oppos' helped but noticed that Ling Mushua and Oppos' eyes were red and swollen, and she did not eat as much as everyone else. Wang Yanfeng asked for their names, and to his surprise, among the 5 besides Tang San and Ling Mushua, the other 3 didn't and Oppos' even have actual names. They only had simple code names. The first youth with his bloodline awakened and successfully transformed was named Dachang. Tang San shared a room with Woody, and Dachang and Oppos' roommate was Floofy. Wang Yanfeng assigned them straightforward names akin to Tang San and Oppos'. The youths were given new names: Wang Da, Wang Er, and Wang Sun. Wang Yanfeng also explained that once they became genuine vassals, they could choose new names. Official names were only granted to those who achieved vassal status. Wearing the vassal and Oppos' name badge would distinguish them from slaves, preventing them from being killed by accident. After dinner, Wang Yanfeng instructed them to go back to their assigned rooms. He would start their education the following day. As he returned to his room, the day and Oppos' ordeal, the warmth of this place, and the changes that had occurred quickly lulled Wang Er into a deep sleep. Seeing that Wang Er was sound asleep, Tang San discreetly slipped out of his bed. The hallway was shrouded in darkness. He tiptoed through the corridor and reached the door of another room on the opposite side of the ground floor. Ling Mushua occupied this room, with the 2 spaces for the boys on either side of the hallway. The door swung open, revealing Ling Mushua and Oppos' face. Upon seeing Tang San, her already swollen eyes became damp once more. He swiftly entered and closed the door. What in Oppos' the matter? Tang San whispered. He genuinely cared about this girl who had offered him a rare source of warmth in this nightmarish world for humans. In response to his query, Ling Mushua broke into tears. Tang San was taken aback, and all he could do was offer his shoulder to support her. A sudden sense of foreboding gripped him, and he felt his throat constricting. What happened to your mother? He asked urgently, but Ling Mushua could only sob, unable to speak. Tang San furrowed his brows, guiding her to sit on the edge of the bed. He gently placed his right hand on her back, using his mysterious heaven technique to slowly pacify her emotions. As Tang San directed the energy of his mysterious heaven technique into Ling Mushua and Oppos' body, he instantly detected a faint green energy within her. It appeared as if this green energy wanted to connect with him. Tang San promptly withdrew, concerned about accidentally extracting the Wind Wolf bloodline power from Ling Muxue and Appo's body. What if Ling Muxue couldn't restore her bloodline energy? Tang San would be putting her in danger. Nevertheless, even with just that infusion of the mysterious heaven technique, Ling Muxue felt a comforting warmth, and her emotions slightly steadied. She gazed at Tang San with tear-filled eyes. "I saw my mother on that altar," Ling Muxue confessed in a trembling voice. Tang San felt his mind go blank immediately. Could it be that those 10 women were the mothers of the 10 who inherited the Wind Wolf bloodline? If Ling Muxue and Appo's mother was there, then my birth mother must have been there as well. Even though it was just a fleeting encounter, one that left no lasting memories in his mind, she was the one who had brought him into this world. His birth mother had been sacrificed because he had chosen to pretend to be one of the awakened with the Wind Wolf bloodline. Tang San was trembling as he thought about that harrowing possibility. He had never anticipated the cruelty of the wolf demons. The other 3 boys Hadden and Appo's noticed and were likely in the same situation as him, separated from their mothers at a young age and unable to recognize them. Only Ling Muxue, who had lived with her mother since birth, could remember her mother even when she was overcome by fear. Intense fear had prevented her from screaming aloud, which had ultimately saved her life. However, after her emotions had settled, she couldn't and Appo's contain her sorrow. "This world can be unbelievably cruel," Tang San murmured. At that moment, the door swung open abruptly, and Wang Yanfeng and Qiu Jing stepped into the room. Qiu Jing and Appo's eyes also welled up with tears. Tang San sprang to his feet, and in that heart-pounding moment, it was as though his very blood had reached a boiling point. His emotions surged beyond his control. He longed to unleash every last bit of his divine consciousness, to lay waste to everything in this place. But then Qiu Jing hurried forward, approaching them with quick steps. She embraced Ling Muxue, soothing her with gentle words. Wang Yanfeng closed his eyes in pain. Every one of us, every surviving vassal has faced scenes. It and Appo's the way of the demons. In their eyes, human women who give birth to those with their bloodline are seen as blasphemous to their ancestors. The human birth mothers can only be offered as sacrificial offerings. Did you see those human skulls beneath the altar? Those are the victims they and Appo's killed for this exact reason. When I met both of you, I sensed that you were different from the others. You and Appo's both intelligent. Especially you. When the other children who failed the assessment were killed, I felt that you were not afraid. You were ready to kill. I believe your Wind Wolf transformation awakened long ago. But you should know one thing, survival is the key here. Impulsiveness leads to death, not just for you but for all of us. According to the rules of the demons, if a vassal shows betrayal, all vassals are executed, even children. The safest path for me is to capture you and hand you over for questioning about your awakening. Both of you. Do you understand? Tang San and Appo's anger gradually turned into icy resolve. He looked at Wang Yanfeng. His gaze was calm but chilling. So, are you planning to hand us over? Wang Yanfeng suddenly felt a shiver run down his spine, startled by the unsettling intensity of Tang San and Appo's stare. Despite being just a child, he appeared far from weak in Wang Yanfeng and Appo's eyes. He couldn't and Appo's help but smile bitterly. If I were to hand you over, would I have stood in your way earlier during the ceremony? Child Don and Appo's try anything, Don and Appo's go anywhere. You will not see your mother and Appo's body again. They and Appo's already dealt with it. If you have the heart, live well and strive to become stronger. The icy coldness in Tang San and Appo's eyes gradually faded, and his clenched fists slowly relaxed. If he were to unleash even a fraction of his divine consciousness, he had an 80% chance of obliterating everything here. However, his chances of achieving godhood under this world and Appo's suppression would become exceedingly slim. The rules on this planet were overwhelmingly powerful. In this world, on this vast continent of demons and nymphs, were these human tragedies limited to just Wind Wolf Town? No, they occurred in every corner of this world. Even if he were to wipe out Wind Wolf Town entirely, it wouldn't oppose. T solved the fundamental problem for humanity. What Wang Yanfeng had said was correct. Only by becoming stronger, by becoming truly powerful, could everything be resolved. At that moment, a warm hand clasped Tang San and Appo's. Tang San turned to look and saw the tear-filled, misty eyes of Qiu Jing. Child, we have no other choice. Please do what you can to live well. That would be the best comfort you can bring your mother. I had a child too, but he failed his awakening assessment. I would have gladly accepted it if he had succeeded, even if it meant my death. As she spoke, Qiu Jing pulled Tang San into her embrace, holding both him and Ling Muxue, tears streaming down her face. Qiu Jing and Appo's embrace was warm. It warmed Tang San and Appo's heart that was filled with killing intent. Ling Muxue cried herself to sleep in that warm embrace, while Wang Yanfeng escorted Tang San back to his room. Get a good night and Appo's sleep, Wang Yanfeng said as he gently patted Tang San's head. Tang San raised his head to look at Wang Yanfeng. The man's eyes were filled with pain, and he seemed to age decades in that brief moment. Wang Yanfeng and Qiu Jing had a child, and that child had failed in the awakening assessment just like the 5 children today. That was why he was so desperate today, doing his best and hoping that more children could survive. Teacher, thank you. Tang San bowed deeply to Wang Yanfeng. Despite Tang San and Appo's past life as a god king, and though Wang Yanfeng was just a humble existence in this Wind Wolf town, what Wang Yanfeng had done was significant. His efforts to preserve the last spark of humanity had earned Tang San and Appo's approval, even though they had only known each other for one day. Thanks to his divine consciousness, Tang San could feel the sorrow and genuine emotion in the hearts of Wang Yanfeng and Qiu Jing. He also felt for the first time that in this world he finally had a home. His night was sleepless, and he couldn't cultivate either. The image of the altar kept appearing in his mind. He didn't and Appo's go outside that night either. While the seed of hatred was deeply rooted in his heart, the warmth brought to him by Wang Yanfeng and his wife was also something he cherished dearly. At this point he couldn't and Appo's act rashly. He had to be sure and think of an escape route for the people in this house before he could act. In the morning, Qiu Jing was up early and prepared breakfast. After a night and Appo's rest, Wang De, Wang Er, and Wang San seemed to be in better spirits, and they were able to fully enjoy the rich breakfast they were offered. By contrast, Tang San appeared listless. Ling Muxue and Appo's eyes were swollen, and her expression was dull as she stared at nothing. Wang Yanfeng, in the meantime, seemed to have returned to his usual self. After eating, he asked the 5 people to stand before him. Starting from today, I will teach you the things you have to know. Every morning there will be lessons about this continent including culture, history, and so on. The following morning, I will test your knowledge of the content you learned. Those who fail the assessment will be punished. In the afternoon, I will teach you the Wind Wolf transformation. You must improve and you must do it fast. Only then you will have a chance to survive when the second test comes in 3 years. Do you understand? Wang Yangfeng's tone was resolute, and left no room for argument or complaint. Wang De, Wang Er, and Wang Sen all nodded repeatedly. They felt as if they had come to an unprecedented paradise, not having to work and being able to eat their fill, which satisfied them. Although they could be considered unenlightened, humans are naturally intelligent, so they roughly understood that their fate had changed. They also understood Wang Yanfeng and Appo's words about the second assessment. Failure to pass meant death. Wang Yanfeng brought out a blackboard and started writing characters. The script of this world, teaching the 5 students word by word. Among the 5, the only one who had any understanding of these characters and had a bit more background knowledge was Ling Muxue. Tang San could naturally speak, but he couldn't and Appo's write. After all, he had been a slave since birth. They only learned 10 characters and 10 basic words on the first day. Then came the lecture about the Demon Continent. The Demon Continent is split into 2 large areas. The area controlled by the demons and the area controlled by the nymphs. The demons call themselves the Holy Tribe, and their area is known as the Empyrean Dominion. The nymphs are also known as the Spirit Tribe, and their area is called the Solstice Empire. Regarding the exact names of countries, there are even different names among the tribes. So, in future lectures I will use Holy Tribe and Spirit Tribe to refer to them. The origin of the demon continent is unknown. According to the histories recorded by both tribes, it is said that the ancestral demons and ancestral nymphs were born first, ages ago. They created the demons and the nymphs that are now known as the Holy Tribe and the Spirit Tribe. Both tribes inherently possess great power, and they had the potential to acquire more power by absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. As they evolved, powerful demons and nymphs appeared, those collectively known today as celestial demons and nymphs. The Holy Tribe and the Spirit Tribe have a certain interdependence, so although conflicts exist, they can maintain a balance overall. The strength of the two sides is also almost equal, and they have complete hegemony over their own territories. Hence the division in governance. The Holy Tribe mainly controls the northeastern part of the demon continent, while the Spirit Tribe is in the relatively warmer southwest. Each tribe has many large cities governed by powerful great demons and great nymphs of the two tribes. The point where the borders of the two tribes meet is the center of the demon continent. At the very center lies the Sanctum Spiritus city, the largest city on the demon continent, inhabited by the most powerful demons and nymphs. It is said that the city is vast beyond imagination. Listening to Wang Yanfeng and Appo's lecture, even the grieving Ling Muxua was somewhat entranced. After all, her mother was just a slave with limited knowledge. What Wang Yanfeng taught was like a story to them, and it was also the first time the vast outside world was laid before their eyes. There are 7 major cities under the rule of the Holy Tribe and 7 main cities governed by the Spirit Tribe. Including the Sanctum Spiritus city, the two tribes have 15 major cities. Only the most powerful great demons and great nymphs have the right to rule these main cities. The weaker demons and nymphs gather as tribes and form villages and towns around the main cities. Villages and towns also vary in size, and our Wind Wolf town is actually the smallest kind. The Wind Wolf clan itself is not strong in the first place, and the wolf demons here are just a small offshoot of the Wind Wolf clan, so they are practically the weakest of the weak. What about us humans? Do humans exist everywhere? Tang San asked. Wang Yanfeng looked at him and then slowly nodded. Yes, humans are spread throughout the demon continent. In terms of numbers, we actually surpass the demons and nymphs combined. Among the slave races, we have the largest population. We humans have no innate abilities and we are physically weak. That puts us at a huge disadvantage compared to the demons and nymphs born with innate abilities. Some powerful demons and nymphs are even born with the power of the 5th or 6th order. They can break through the 9th order and develop even greater strength upon adulthood. In contrast, while we are weak, we reproduce much more quickly. We are also comparatively intelligent, more competent when it comes to following complex commands, and more creative. And there is also, he paused, his expression slightly twisted, good flesh quality. Hence we are considered good slaves, and for some demons we are even livestock. They will breed us extensively. In their eyes we are lowly beings. Strangely, when those powerful demons and nymphs cultivate to a certain extent or are naturally strong, they can transform into human form. This ability is something that I have only heard of, though. Even though I've been to some large cities, I have yet to see anything like that. According to what I have heard, the humans are treated better under the rule of the nymphs because nymphs are herbivorous. Also, nymphs seem to be less brutal in nature. Thanks to that, humans are much better integrated in the nymph society, and naturally the human vassals of the nymphs have a higher status than us. It is said that there are also some with substantial abilities. That and Appo's. All for today. If I continue, you one and Appo's. Be able to remember everything. After you return to the house, copy the words I taught you today 10 times and memorize them well. There will be an assessment tomorrow, and those who fail will be punished. Now go. The morning class ended. Judging from Wang Yanfeng and Appo's lecture, while his knowledge was by no means all-encompassing, he was definitely considered well-educated among humans. His teachings about the demon continent benefited Tang San. In order to find his wife, he first needed to understand this world. Upon returning home, Tang San first copied the characters 10 times as Wang Yanfeng had instructed. After digesting what he had learned that day, he noticed that it was already time for lunch. After lunch, Wang Yanfeng gave the 5 of them an hour and Appo's rest before starting the afternoon lesson, which was about the Wind Wolf transformation. Tang San was comparatively more interested in this subject. To regain his former strength, He needed to start by understanding the power system of this world. He could then gradually recover his former abilities. At the same time, he could integrate the unique characteristics of this world and the mysterious heaven technique to strengthen himself. Only with true power could he accomplish all that he sought to do. You were chosen because there is a certain amount of wind wolf blood flowing through your veins. When your wind wolf bloodline is awakened, your body will change, granting you certain abilities. This is what we call the wind wolf transformation. If awakened, humans with bloodlines from any demon clan will have such abilities, collectively known as the demonic god transformation. Cultivation means improving the power of your bloodline and strengthening your abilities. If you want to survive the assessment, then within 3 years, you must at the very least attain third-order strength by cultivating the wind wolf transformation. Let me tell you this once again. This is about survival. It's not a game, and I am not joking. You cultivate or you die. Just like the 5 who didn't in Oppos. T passed the assessment that day. Except for Tang San, the other 4 couldn't and Oppos. T helped but look fearful. All beings fear death, and they were no exception. To excel in the demonic god transformation, one must understand how demon clans naturally cultivate. Regardless of the specific lineage, all demons possess a unique form of energy within their blood when they are born. This energy has multiple uses. It nurtures their bodies, aids their growth, and bestows them with abilities. Even if they dawn in Oppos, T actively cultivate, their bodies naturally absorb spiritual energy from the world, and their bloodlines naturally improve as time passes. More powerful demon and nymph clans have specific cultivation methods to enhance their bloodlines, making their cultivation easier and faster. Hence, they can reach higher orders of cultivation. Our cultivation method is quite similar to theirs. It allows us to absorb spiritual energy from the world and circulate it through our body. Here, I have the cultivation method for the first 4 stages of the wind wolf transformation. I will begin teaching you now. The core principle is awakening the energy within your bloodline, allowing it to generate more of this energy when stimulated and enabling you to control it. I will now teach you how to guide your wind wolf bloodline for cultivation. Then Wang Yanfeng started his instruction. Tang San listened attentively, and he found Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' explanations very straightforward. Of course, they were at a level that the Wang siblings could understand. As for Tang San and Ling Muxue and Oppos' comprehension abilities, Wang Yangfeng was much less concerned. The primary method of cultivating the wind wolf transformation involved stimulating the bloodline. By controlling the energy in the bloodline, the cultivator could boost their physical abilities as well as their blood itself, allowing it to absorb more and more spiritual energy from the world during the period of bloodline agitation. According to Wang Yanfeng, places with denser spiritual energy from the heavens and earth were more conducive to enhancing bloodlines. However, it was also important not to cultivate in places with exceedingly thick spiritual energy, because the body could end up unable to withstand the energy absorption. After all, the human body was quite fragile compared to the physiques of demons and nymphs. With that in mind, cultivating in Wind Wolf Town was enough for them right now. The method of stimulating the bloodline was simple, and Tang San understood it right away. It involved guiding the Wind Wolf and Oppos' power within one and Oppos' body to stimulate specific acupoints. It was a very straightforward cultivation method, and compared to the mysterious heaven technique, it was by far less complex. However, no matter how straightforward this cultivation method was, Tang San couldn't and Oppos' learn it. The reason was simple. He didn't and Oppos' actually have one single drop of wind wolf blood. His wind blade ability was obtained through the absorption using the energy from the mysterious heaven technique. It was as if he had retained the energy of those wind blades within him. When he used them, the mysterious heaven technique could transform his own energy into a similar type of energy, based on the imprint left by the wind blade bloodline ability. Still, the intensity remained the same as when he had absorbed the ability. In other words, the cultivation method of the wind wolf transformation held no meaning for him. All it served to do was deepen his understanding of the world and Oppos' cultivation methods and the demonic god transformation. Under Wang Yanfeng and Oppos' guidance, the Wang siblings quickly got the hang of stimulating their bloodlines with the help of his bloodline power. Ling Muxue in particular grasped the cultivation method extremely quickly. Wang Yanfeng only needed to guide her once and she could cultivate on her own. However, when it came to Tang San, things were different. Even before Wang Yanfeng could guide him, he was already surrounded by a shimmering green light as he activated the wind blade. You and Appos V learned it? Wang Yanfeng was somewhat surprised as he felt the more substantial presence of wind elements around Tang San compared to the others. Strangely though, there was no sign of any wind wolf transformation in his body. Well, yeah, you explained it very clearly. I gave it a try and it seemed to work, Tang San said earnestly. Wang Yanfeng looked at him with some suspicion. He had taught more than just this group of people, and he had naturally seen his share of gifted people. However, someone like Tang San, who could master the basics of the wind wolf transformation cultivation without guidance, was a first for him. His innate talent was exceptional. When he had first seen Tang San, he had sensed that this child was somewhat different, but he hadn't been able to tell exactly what set him apart. Nevertheless, this was undoubtedly a positive sign. Even Wang Yongfeng himself in his youth hadn't shown the same ability as Tang San. In truth, Tang San most wanted to ask whether there was a bottleneck at the third cultivation order. However, he didn't and Appos T want to raise this question now as it might arouse suspicion from Wang Yanfeng. He planned to conduct his own experiments first. After all, his cultivation method and the demonic god transformation were different. Very well, then continue your cultivation. Just try to enhance the power within your bloodline. A month from now, I will assess your cultivation progress and evaluate the strength of your abilities, Wang Yanfeng said. Teacher, may I ask a question? Tang San spoke up. You may. Wang Yanfeng nodded. Tang San asked, Teacher, what in Appos? The highest order among the demons and nymphs on the demon continent? Wang Yanfeng was taken aback. He clearly hadn't and Appos T expected Tang San to ask such a question. He looked at the slender, bright-eyed, and handsome child before him and replied, according to legends, it and Appos the 12th order. I cannot even begin to imagine how powerful that is. As for whether the legendary ancestral demons exist, and whether there are ranks beyond the 12th, I couldn't tell you. Hearing his answer, Tang San couldn't help but shiver. He immediately made up his mind about the future. In his original world, known as the Douluo continent, the highest level an ordinary person could reach was the equivalent of the 9th order, and beyond that were the god ranks. Assuming that this world in Appos' 10th, 11th, and 12th order were equivalent to the 3rd class, 2nd class, and 1st class respectively, it meant that the demon and nymph clans on the demon continent were able by default to reach the level of 1st class god. If that was indeed the case, the energy on the Phelan planet had to be one of the highest among all celestial bodies he had ever encountered. If the so-called ancestral demons were on a higher level than the first-class gods, that naturally meant they touched upon the level of God King from his original realm. However, Tang San had yet to sense the existence of a divine realm here. Suppose there is no divine realm at all, yet there are beings that reach the level of God Kings relying solely on this planet. That implies the energy level of this planet puts it on par with the divine realm I was in, and maybe even surpasses it. Incredible. I have indeed come to an extraordinary place. Setting things right in a place with such high-level cultivation is going to be quite the task. With this thought, a trace of bitter smile appeared at the corner of Tang San and Appos' mouth. There was no other way. He would have to take it one step at a time and see how things unfolded. After Wang Yanfeng had guided Tang San and the other four in their wind wolf transformation cultivation, he instructed them to return to their rooms to continue cultivating, which they did until dinner. As they were about to eat, Wang Yanfeng suddenly spoke to Wang Da, Wang Er, and Wang San. I and Appos. V been thinking perhaps it and Appos. Time to give each of you a name so that you can have your own proper identity. Would you like that? I am willing. Wang Da nodded with a simple grin. Wang Er blinked and said, sure, why not? Wang San, the tallest among them, even taller than Tang San, was incredibly thin, resembling a bamboo pole. He asked, would that be okay? Yes, said Wang Da, rebuking Wang San with a stern look. Aha, Wang San replied. He seemed somewhat afraid of Wang Da, and he could only nod in agreement. Then it and Appos as settled. I and Appos. V come up with names for each of you. Wang Da, from now on you and Appos, LL be called Wang Chao. Wang Er, your name will be Wang Zhong, and as for Wang San, you and Appos, LL be Wang Xiaolei, Wang Yanfeng said. Wang Chao exclaimed with joy that and Appos. Great. Thank you, teacher. I finally have my name. Wang Zhong blinked but didn't oppose. Say much. He was also relatively thin, but compared to Wang Da and Wang San, he appeared to be more reserved, though not timid. During the sacrificing ritual, it was only in Wang Zhong and Appo's gaze that Tang San had detected a sense of resentment rather than pure fear. Wang Xiaolei furrowed his brow and said, I have 3 characters in my name. Would it be difficult to write? Why are you protesting so much? It and Appo's settled. Thanks, teacher, Wang Chao said, giving him a stern look. He was the oldest among them, so it felt natural for everyone that he was taking on the elder brother role. Among the 5 children, Tang San was the youngest. Wang Chao was already 17 years old, Wang Zhong was 14, Wang Xiaolei was 12, Ling Muxue was 10, and Tang San himself was only 8 years old. Tang San, let the teacher give you a name too, Wang Chao kindly suggested. Tang San shook his head and said, no need, I and Appo's. Am fine with just being called Tang San. Alright, let an Appo's. Go ahead and eat, Wang Yanfeng said. After dinner, they all returned to their rooms to continue their cultivation. The Wang siblings still required Wang Yanfeng and Appo's guidance to enter the state of bloodline stimulation cultivation. Tang San, on the other hand, didn't and Appo's need any assistance. What surprised Wang Yanfeng, however, was that after he guided her once, Ling Muxue was also able to initiate bloodline cultivation on her own. As the night grew darker, Tang San, sitting cross-legged on his bed, slowly opened his eyes. On the bed opposite from his, Wang Zhong was still cultivating diligently, and his aura was very stable. Tang San could sense the pulsations of his bloodline and faint fluctuations of wind elemental energy around his body. Tang San's gaze grew sharp. Life had finally changed, at least for the better. He no longer had to worry about becoming food for the demons. Now, the most important thing was to improve his strength. He had given himself 3 years, just 3 years. 3 years from now would be the moment to leave this place. And it would also be the moment to exact revenge. He looked out the window in the direction of the Wind Wolf Town Square, and he subconsciously clenched his fist. His birth mother had died at the hands of the Wind Wolf clan. It didn't matter that he had only seen her for a few moments. What mattered was that the woman who had given him life was now dead. The killing of his mother ensured that there was no room for reconciliation between him and the demons. Quietly pushing open the window, Tang San slipped out in a flash. He carefully closed the window behind him. Even though Wang Yanfeng and Appo's cultivation level was higher than his in a way, Tang San was confident that he wouldn't Appo's be discovered thanks to the Tang sect and Appo's ultimate techniques that he knew from his previous life. Tang San slowly stepped away, getting farther and farther from his residence. He didn't Appo's head toward the square because he feared not being able to control his emotions if he went there and saw the skeletons beneath the altar. He followed along the dark corners of the walls, carefully concealing his figure. He had been to Wind Wolf Town a number of times before, so while he couldn't Appo's claimed to be familiar with every place, he had a good grasp of most of the terrain. Soon he arrived near a large stone house. From a distance, he could see that the house was brightly lit and hear the clamor coming from inside. Tang San wasn't sure what kind of alcohol existed in this world, or what substance they used instead, but going by his past life standard, this was probably a tavern. This place was the favorite gathering spot for the wolf demons of Wind Wolf Town. It was very late at night, but the place was still busy. The late-night bustle meant that Tang San had chosen the right spot for what he was about to do. He crouched in a dark corner, silently watching the tavern and Appo's entrance, waiting patiently. Perhaps because it was already quite late, Tang San didn't Appo's have to wait too long. Several tall figures staggered out of the tavern. Their voices were loud but slurred, indicating that they had too much to drink. As these wolf demons walked, they were laughing and cursing at something. Tang San watched them until they headed into the town. At a crossroads, the wolf demons split up and went their separate ways. Tang San locked onto one of the wolf demons with a medium build and quickly followed. He moved stealthily, and the wolf demon was too drunk to notice. The strength of the Wind Wolf clan members could generally be assessed based on their physique. Smaller individuals were typically second-order wind wolves, while the larger ones were third-order. Only powerful individuals had the potential to reach a higher rank, and in Wind Wolf Town, such formidable wind wolves were rare. There was only one like the Wind Wolf Lord, who stood over 3 meters tall. Tang San and Appo's target was a third-order wind wolf, the kind of average burly wolf demon commonly found in Wind Wolf Town. As he followed closely, Tang San silently approached from behind. With a subtle movement of his right hand, he used the gentle mysterious heaven technique combined with the Tang sect and Appo's unique control crane capture dragon method. The wind wolf stumbled in its steps, nearly falling forward. However, even in its drunken state, the third-order wind wolf was agile. It instinctively attempted to push itself up with its hands. Tang San seized this momentary opportunity. He closed in swiftly and targeted the wind wolf and Appo's lower back with a light toe tap. For animals like dogs and wolves, their lower back was one of the most vulnerable spots. While the wind wolf was not just a normal animal but a demon, it still shared similarities in anatomy with its wild counterpart. As Tang San kicked the wolf demon in Appo's lower back, it immediately went limp and fell to the side. Although it attempted to curse, Tang San had already grabbed it by its throat with his mysterious jade hands, blocking its blood flow and causing it to faint. This series of actions happened incredibly quickly, taking only 2 or 3 seconds from start to finish. The third-order wind wolf was now lying unconscious on the ground. Tang San observed the situation for a moment, and seeing no disturbances, he dragged the wind wolf to a dark corner and placed his right hand on its chest. After several years of cultivation, Tang San was familiar with the wind element within the wind wolf bloodline. As he infused his mysterious heaven technique energy into the wind wolf and Appo's body, he immediately sensed the presence of wind elements within its bloodline. What pleasantly surprised Tang San was that the bloodline power of the living wind wolf was much richer than that of the 2 wind wolves that had died by his hand 2 years before. Once the energy from the mysterious heaven technique connected, it didn't Appo's hesitate to devour and pull this bloodline energy into itself, merging it with the wind blade energy that he had initially absorbed. The two converging forces immediately showed signs of merging. Although there was some dispersion of energy during the fusion process, Tang San felt that his wind blade aura had become more substantial, not because the technique itself had become more powerful, but because the energy imprint that produced the wind blades had become more substantial. This meant that when he used the mysterious heaven technique to transform his energy into wind blades, he could produce even stronger ones. What surprised Tang San the most was that he had been stuck at the third bottleneck of the mysterious heaven technique for a long time, but now that he had absorbed and integrated this energy, that bottleneck was actually showing signs of loosening up. It looked as if he was about to break through to the fourth order. He carefully observed the wind wolf, remembering its distinctive features. Instead of killing it, Tang San quickly left the scene and returned to his house. It wasn't that he didn't Appo's want to kill the wind wolf. The problem was that if a random drunkard passed out on the road, no one would bat an eye, but if a third-order wind wolf was found dead, that would inevitably cause a serious commotion. It wasn't Appo's the right time for that. Tang San returned to his lodging stealthily, and saw that Wang Zhong was still quietly cultivating on his bed. Tang San could sense that he was deeply immersed in his wind wolf transformation cultivation. Tang San also sat on his own bed, quickly activating the mysterious heaven technique to process the portion of the wind wolf bloodline power he had just absorbed. Today and Appo's experiment was crucial for him, as it would determine whether he could continue to break through bottlenecks and find a way to higher realms. If it was successful, it would greatly benefit his future cultivation. The experiment had 2 parts. One was whether, after absorbing the wind wolf and Appo's bloodline power, he could break through his bottleneck. The other was whether the third-order wind wolf whose bloodline power he had absorbed could recover its power, or if it would permanently lose it. These aspects were crucial, and would significantly impact his future cultivation path. He had long since reached the peak of the third order, and the sensation of the bottleneck had become quite clear after absorbing the bloodline power of the third-order wind wolf earlier. However, he found the sensation fading when he tried to activate the mysterious heaven technique again. The previously loosening bottleneck of the mysterious heaven technique seemed to be tightened again by some invisible force, preventing him from breaking through. The obstacle made Tang San frown. If things didn't and oppose go as he had imagined, it would be a significant setback for him. Being stuck at his current level of cultivation meant that the future would be really bleak. He needed to find another way out. He remained patient, silently circulating the energy from the mysterious heaven technique to gradually absorb and assimilate the bloodline power he had taken. His energy grew denser, and although it didn't and oppose allow him to break through to a new level, there was more energy within him, and it also seemed more substantial. At the same time, Tang San noticed that the bloodline imprint belonging to the Wind Wolf had also grown stronger. In simple terms, he would be able to condense stronger wind blades now. Before, when he activated this imprint using the mysterious heaven technique, there would be some traces of Wind Wolf energy in his aura. Now this change was even more visible. Initially, right after absorbing Zhu Jessen and Appo's Leopard Flash and the bloodline power of the Wind Wolf, the Leopard bloodline imprint had been more potent than the Wolf one, resulting in better effects. It could be effectively used within a 10-meter radius, and its performance was excellent. On the other hand, while the wind blades had some decent power, they were nothing really exceptional. Today, after absorbing the bloodline power of that third-order Wind Wolf, the Wind Blade bloodline imprint strengthened. When he used the mysterious heaven technique to activate the bloodline imprint, the Wind Wolf and Appo's aura became more substantial, and the wind blades became significantly more powerful. In fact, it seemed that they could reach a power level similar to when a third-order Wind Wolf used them. Tang San silently absorbed the energy and felt the changes within himself. Finally, he formed his first conclusion. By this point, he was reasonably confident that the mysterious heaven technique could empower him by absorbing the bloodline power of demons. During this absorption process, the energy would become a part of the mysterious heaven technique, accelerating his cultivation speed. Simultaneously, the characteristics within the bloodline would also form bloodline imprints, allowing him to transform and utilize the abilities represented by those bloodline imprints through the mysterious heaven technique. This rather unique transformation was most likely exclusive to his mysterious heaven technique. In other words, by producing these bloodline imprints, he was the only one able to use abilities belonging to different demon races. Looks like a great direction to work in. Also, his earlier speculation seemed to be on the right track. If he wanted to escape the constraints of this plane and break through the bottleneck, devouring the bloodline power of demons seemed to be the only way forward. He had sensed the bottleneck loosening back then, and it appeared that the main issue preventing his breakthrough was that the energy he had devoured was simply not enough. His target had been a third-order Wind Wolf, whose bloodline energy intensity was not even as high as his mysterious heaven technique at the third order. In that case, there was one clear path to continue to break through and avoid the suppression of this dimension, devouring the bloodline power of a fourth-order Wind Wolf. If he absorbed the bloodline power of a higher-order demon, his aura would temporarily rise to the level of that demon. When the world suppression loosened at that moment, he could likely break through the bottleneck and reach the fourth order. Moreover, he strongly suspected that from the third order onward, all his future breakthroughs would have to be done this way to avoid the world suppression. In any case, he now had a direction and a goal in his cultivation. The next step, naturally, was to find a fourth-order Wind Wolf and attempt to absorb and assimilate its bloodline power. A fourth-order Wind Wolf was and Appo's actually a common sight in Wind Wolf Town, but there was actually one right here in Tang San's house. Wang Yinfeng himself had the bloodline of a fourth-order Wind Wolf. Otherwise, he Wuden and Appo's have been able to live in such a house with his vassal status. He was definitely the strongest among the vassals in Wind Wolf Town. The next step of the experiment was to observe whether the third-order wolf demon whose bloodline power he had previously devoured could regain its bloodline strength. Tang San could begin preparations to find a fourth-order wolf demon if the third-order one could recover without raising suspicion. However, if the wolf demon could not regain its strength, Tang San would be forced to lay low for a while. Members of the clan mysteriously losing bloodline power would undoubtedly raise suspicions among the Wind Wolf clan. One such incident might be chalked off as an odd but unimportant occurrence, but if another wolf demon experienced the same issue, and it was a fourth-order one to boot, it would be clear that something was amiss. Armed with renewed determination, Tang San diligently cultivated the mysterious heaven technique. Even though he couldn't and Appo's shatter the barrier like that, His extensive experience in cultivation had taught him the importance of building a solid foundation. When the time for a breakthrough arrived, it would flow smoothly. Strengthening his foundation now would make his future cultivation journey all the more effortless. In the following days, Tang San and the other 5 students continued their daily routine of learning and training with Wang Yanfeng. Mornings were dedicated to acquiring knowledge, while afternoons were reserved for practicing the wind wolf transformation and its variations. The 5 of them now led fulfilling lives, worlds apart from their previous routine as slaves. Despite Ling Muxue and Appo's often somber mood, she displayed exceptional dedication during their training and learning sessions. After days upon days of learning, everyone in Appo's innate talents began to emerge. Among the Wang siblings, surprisingly, Wang Chao had the least impressive talent. At the same time, Wang Zhong and Wang Xiaolei showed better potential. The 3 of them were slightly behind Ling Muxue regarding talent. Ling Muxue, after a few days of guidance and practice in wind wolf transformation, had progressed to the point where she could partially transform into a wind wolf. Although she couldn't and Appo's yet manifest wind blades, her improvement was so rapid that even Wang Yanfeng had to praise her for it. As for Tang San, he was different from the rest. Wang Yanfeng was quite surprised when he noticed that Tang San and Appo's wind blades had grown larger. However, Tang San didn't and Appo's undergo a wind wolf transformation at all. Forget about partially transforming, he couldn't and Appo's even produce a single wolf hair. Naturally, this piqued Wang Yanfeng and Appo's curiosity, but nothing much could be done about it. Nonetheless, he did impart some additional techniques for controlling wind blades to Tang San. During these past few days, Tang San and Appo's experiment was completed. Every night, he would quietly sneak out to find the wolf demon whose bloodline power he had devoured. He didn't and Appo's find it on the first day or the second day. However, on the third day, he spotted the wolf demon from a distance. The wolf demon appeared noticeably weaker than before Tang San attacked it. However, upon closer examination, Tang San discovered that its bloodline power had partially recovered and gradually improved. The fact that it hadn't and Appo's appeared in the past 2 days showed that it was probably resting at home to regenerate its bloodline power. In other words, the bloodline power Tang San devoured could be recovered through rest, but it required some time. To the wolf demon, it probably felt like some kind of sudden illness that went away after a few days of rest. To be cautious, Tang San observed it for several more days, and by the 5th day, the wolf demon and Appo's bloodline power had mainly returned to its original state. This gave Tang San a plan. What he needed to do next was to find a 4th-order wolf demon to attempt his breakthrough. But this also left him in a bit of a pinch. A 4th-order wolf demon was entirely different from a 3rd-order one. Just 1 order higher, and the strength difference was significant. Typically, 3rd-order wolf demons stood about 1.9 meters tall, and were incredibly robust. However, 4th-order wolf demons surpassed 3rd-order ones by a full head and were beyond just brawny. A single 4th-order wolf demon could handle 4 or 5 3rd-order ones without any issue. Between the 3rd to the 4th order was a significant threshold. Tang San had his trusty and well-practiced Tang Sec techniques, in addition to new abilities like Leopard Flash and Wind Blade, and he had confidence in facing a 4th-order wolf demon. However, he had serious doubts that he could defeat one without making any noise. Once there was any commotion, he might very well be exposed. Therefore, his current options were to confront a 4th-order wolf demon in the wilderness, or to fight his teacher. Tang San didn't and Appo's rush things and continued his daily routine of learning and training. Under Wang Yanfeng and Appo's guidance, he gained a deeper understanding of the history and culture of the demon continent, which was equally important to him. Half a month had passed in the blink of an eye, and everyone in Appo's bloodlines had improved to varying degrees. They were all able to release wind blades by now. However, the other 4 were still lagging behind Tang San. Starting today, we and Appo's add another class, Practical Combat. Only through real battles can you further enhance your combat skills, Wang Yanfeng announced in the afternoon, making it clear that today in Appo's lesson was going to be different. Follow me to the courtyard, he said, leading the 5 of them outside. After half a month of learning, All 5 could enter the bloodline stimulation state by themselves and cultivate wind-wolf transformation independently. However, today and Appo's practical combat class was a first for them. The courtyard was a little small, but it provided enough space for their activities, and the wooden fence ensured that they were shielded from prying eyes. Wang Yanfeng stood at the center of the courtyard and said, "You and Appo's LL take turns. Attack me. Wang Chao, you go first. Use the wind wolf transformation." All right, Wang Chao agreed and positioned himself 3 meters away from Wang Yanfeng. Let and Appo's start. Wang Yanfeng chose to directly face them because he was concerned about their control over their powers, and he didn't and Appo's want them to harm each other inadvertently. Wang Chao took a deep breath and suddenly his energy surged. He let out a wolf and Appo's howl and his body expanded slightly, stretching his clothes. His hair stood on end, his teeth protruded, and his eyes emitted a faint bluish-green light. He was a very normal person, but right now he had a rather ferocious aura. He was usually fairly lanky, skinnier than other young men of the same age, but thanks to the wind wolf transformation, he now looked as if he had been lifting weights starting from the cradle. Wang Yanfeng nodded at him. "Attack me." Wang Chao let out a low growl. The wind wolf transformation not only strengthened his physical abilities, but also instilled in him a ferocity reminiscent of a true wind wolf. Wang Chao lunged directly at Wang Yanfeng. This pounce lacked any technique, but the speed and strength were leagues above an ordinary human and Appo's. Wang Yanfeng did not use wind wolf transformation but simply took a step sideways to avoid Wang Chao and Appo's pounce. "You're way too slow. You should be using your wolf claws as attack weapons. Target the opponent and Appo's vitals." Wang Chao's attack missed the target, but he quickly turned around and lunged again, extending his right wolf claw toward Wang Yanfeng and Appo's chest, aiming for his heart. Wang Yanfeng took another step to the side, avoiding his attack once again. Tang San watched from the sidelines and he noticed that Wang Yanfeng and Appo's judgment was truly exact. It seemed that every time he took just one casual step to effortlessly evade Wang Chao and Appo's attacks. In reality, it resulted from his accurate anticipation of the teen's movements. As he agilely dodged, he guided Wang Chao on how to execute his attacks. Tang San could tell that his teacher possessed a wealth of combat experience. Throughout the training, his teacher and Appo's gaze remained calm, and he always pinpointed Wang Chao and Appo's issues accurately. Less than 5 minutes had passed, but Wang Chao was already crouched on the ground, panting heavily. His wind wolf transformation had also ended. With his current bloodline strength, he could only sustain the transformation for about 5 minutes. He made some mistakes and encountered issues you should all pay attention to. Also, remember that until your bloodline strength reaches the second order, you should not use wind blades casually. Using abilities like the wind blade that release energy externally will consume your bloodline strength faster. Unless you are certain it and Appo's a killing blow, refrain from using it. Otherwise, it will shorten the duration of your wind wolf transformation and make you more vulnerable. While saying this, Wang Yanfeng waved to Wang Zhong. "You saw the mistakes he made just now. Be cautious. Come on." Wang Zhong didn't and Appo's say anything either. He nodded and stimulated his bloodline, activating his wind wolf transformation. His transformed shape was slightly smaller than Wang Chao and Appo's but his eyes were sharper. He crouched slightly, and in the next instant he pounced toward Wang Yanfeng. Wang Yanfeng and Appo's footsteps made a slight movement as if he was about to evade, but at that exact moment Wang Zhong and Appo's pouncing figure suddenly paused. His right foot touched the ground for a moment, changing his direction, which was the same as Wang Yanfeng and Appo's apparent evasion route. In turn, Wang Yanfeng and Appo's feet only made a slight movement forward and then immediately off to the side, causing Wang Zhong to miss his target. It looked as if he had intentionally launched himself in the wrong direction. Among the 5, only Tang San could see that Wang Yanfeng and Appo's earlier movement had been a feint, and it had successfully deceived Wang Zhong. "Not bad. You didn't and Appo's exhaust your strength and adapted by changing direction. However, pay attention to your opponent and Appo's movements. Keep going." Wang Yanfeng praised Wang Zhong. Wang Zhong, after missing his attack, twisted his body and pounced at Wang Yanfeng again. Comparatively, he was more agile than Wang Chao. After several unsuccessful attacks, Wang Zhong proactively created distance to catch his breath. He managed to hold on for about 5 minutes as well, despite his lower proficiency in the Wind Wolf transformation compared to Wang Chao. In terms of combat talent, he surpassed his elder brother. Next, Wang Xiaolei only held on for 3 minutes in his Wind Wolf transformation. He was younger and less adept at fighting compared to Wang Chao and Wang Zhong. However, Wang Yanfeng had previously praised him for having better results in the Wind Wolf transformation bloodline training. He had a lot to learn, but his potential was quite a bit better. The fourth one to go was Ling Muxue. "Teacher, can I attack in any way?" Ling Muxue looked at Wang Yanfeng and asked softly. "Of course you can attack in any way you want. You won an Appo's. Be able to hurt me. Let me see how our little Muxue and Appo's combat abilities are." Wang Yanfeng was quite pleased with his only female disciple. Ling Muxue and Appo's dedication to her cultivation was no less than the boys'. Her learning and training results were impressive because she had started her cultivation early. Ling Muxue also took a deep breath. Her hair gradually turned bluish-gray, wolf fur emerged at the nape of her neck, and a green light shimmered in her eyes. With a swift movement, she charged toward Wang Yanfeng. Her speed was noticeably greater than that of the Wang siblings, and although her attack still lacked some finesse, it appeared graceful. Wang Yanfeng immediately noticed that she had put her full strength into the charge. Her speed was good, but she had not avoided the mistakes made by the Wang siblings. He furrowed his brow slightly and took a step to evade. Ling Muxue and Appo's charge naturally missed its target, but the instant she missed, she suddenly twisted in midair. Because she didn't change the direction of her attack, this sudden twist should have caused her to lose control and fall shoulder first on the ground. However, she actually managed to do a full flip instead. A wind blade shot out from her hand in an instant, flying straight towards Wang Yanfeng and Appo's shoulder.